The following program does not have a normal intro because I was really too busy smoothing other things over to get it done. So, Ori? Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the following program special edition debate between Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis. If you can't enjoy the debate here, there's absolutely zero chance you'll enjoy it anywhere else. So stick around. Stick around. If I have to sit through this, so do you. Oh my God. Just to give you a little inkling into what the experts are saying, the quote unquote experts over at CNN. I just popped out with an article 7 minutes ago. The gloves are off. Expert weighs in on what the candidates need to do in tonight's debate. Yeah, I think it's like self-delete. I don't know. What do they need to do in tonight's debate? Drink a lot? Like save their tears in case they get thirsty? What do they need to do in tonight's debate? I don't know. All right. Who's this expert? Who's the expert? Aaron Call, director of debate. No, who? All right. Rough run of things for the last several weeks. I thought she's winning. I don't know what the hell is happening here. I don't really care who Aaron Call is. I don't care. All right, let's get it
from the questioners or from the other.
This looks like it.
Or from the other candidates. And answer your question though about does it energize this event? I think it energizes it in this way. It's now very, very clear if it was.
Let's see. It's supposed to be on CNN. Real time. Who's speaking most and least? Oh, here we go.
Republicans. Let's bring out the candidates now. Please welcome Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
Try to look not completely awkward.
Please welcome former South Carolina Governor and U.S.
Let's go! Let's go!
Candidates, please take your positions behind the podiums while we remind you and our audience of the ground rules. Each of you will have 90 seconds to answer questions, 60 seconds for responses and rebuttals, and 15 seconds for clarifications. Timing lights will remind you when time is expiring.
We also remind our audience here in the Sheslow Auditorium at Drake University to be respectful so the candidates can hear the questions and can hear each other.
What?
Just hours ago, the Republican field narrowed once again. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie ended his bid for the presidency. So, with one fewer candidate in the running, let's start with the decision voters here in Iowa are about to face. Governor DeSantis, why should voters who are looking for an alternative to the current frontrunner, former President Trump, vote for you rather than former Governor Haley?
Well, to the people of Iowa, good evening. It's great to be in Iowa to have a debate here. Donald Trump's running to pursue his issues. Nikki Haley's running to pursue her donors' issues. I'm running to pursue your issues and your family's issues and to turn this country around. I'm the only one running that's delivered on 100% of the promises that I've made. We've delivered huge victories in the state of Florida, things that Republicans have been asking for a generation. I'm also the only one
because you had a supermajority in Florida.
Time and time again. We beat the teachers union on universal school choice. We beat Soros on crime. We beat Fauci on COVID. We beat the Dems on election integrity. And I beat the left by banning China from buying land in the state of Florida. Now, Nikki Haley is running. We don't need another mealy-mouthed politician who just tells you what she thinks you want to hear just to try to get your vote, then to get in office and to do her donors' bidding. She was in another state and she said the people of Iowa's votes need to be corrected. This is somebody that wrote in her book that Hillary Clinton inspired her to first run for office. I remember Hillary denigrating people on the Republican side as deplorables. We don't need a candidate who's going to look down on middle America. We've had enough of that. I'm the only one that's going to be able to lead this country's revival. I'm asking for your support, and I won't let you down.
Governor Haley, your response?
Well, I think this is a time that we know that we need a new generational leader. We have watched our country be in disarray. We see the world on fire, and we need someone who's had executive experience. I've been a 2-term governor that took a double-digit unemployment state and turned it into an economic powerhouse. I was at the UN. I dealt with Russia, China, Iran every day. But you're going to find out tonight that there's going to be a lot of Ron's lies that have happened. There are at least a couple of dozen so far that he's done. So what we're going to do is rather than have him go and tell you all these lies, you can go to DeSantisLies.com and look at all of those. There's at least 24 lies that he's told about me, and you can see where fact checkers say exactly what's going to happen.
Fact checkers?
And
that's
exactly
what you're falling back on? Fact
so
checkers?
We'll cover the fact that he's only mad about the donors because the donors used to be with him, but they're no longer with him now. And that's because he's upset about the fact that his campaign is exploding. You're going to see the fact that he has switched his policies multiple times, and we'll call that out tonight. But every time he lies, don't turn this into a drinking game because you will be overserved by the end of the night.
Well, I think this is interesting because you can actually go to RonDeSantis.com because Nikki Haley has this tactic. If you hold her accountable to her record, first she'll say, I never said that. Well, one good rule of thumb, if she says she's never said something, that definitely means she said it. And then she'll say, you're lying, you're lying. That means not only did she say it, but she's on videotape saying it.
Yep.
And so we have all the greatest hits. The reality is Nikki Haley is not somebody that has been willing to stand in and fight on behalf of conservatives. You know, she ran for governor saying she was going to do universal school choice, and she caved to the teachers union. She didn't deliver that. In Florida, I delivered the largest expansion of school choice in the history of the United States. I beat the teachers union. And you know what the results are? When she was governor of South Carolina, she was rated 50th in education, dead last. You know where Florida is under my watch? #1 in the nation.
Your response.
Stop with your #1 in the nation. You have a super majority.
Go to DeSantisLies.com and you can find out for yourself. But why don't we talk about the fact that if we're going to say this, when Ron was representing Florida, he said that he promised not to raise the debt limit when he got to D.C. Yet he raised the debt limit by hundreds of billions of dollars. He used to support Ukraine. He supported Ukraine when President Obama was in office. Now he's trying to copy Trump and
now they're at war. Now they're at war. Yeah, that's a very different thing.
He also goes and says that he wants to talk about me insulting Iowans. Iowans know when you're telling a joke. The fact that he's only running in one state is not the way you win president. I'm running in all states.
Whenever I say good evening, I notice I go like,
why he authored legislation to ban the renewable fuel standard that's so important to Iowans' economy, and the fact that he co-sponsored 5 different pieces of legislation to get rid of it. And also, then he also said he would never do anything with Social Security. Yet he voted 3 times to raise the retirement age of Social Security. So if you're going to talk about what you said and what you did, I think you've got your own explaining to do rather than telling lies about.
Thank you, Governor. We're going to get to a lot of these issues in the debate.
Everyone lies.
Governor Haley, when Governor Christie dropped out of the race just a few hours ago, he said the most important issue is, quote, the character of the candidate.
I guess it was the character of the floor not being able to hold his weight.
He knew
That's
he
why
would
he
be
dropped
the
out.
only Republican candidate to speak the truth about former President Donald Trump. Do you believe Donald Trump has the character to be president again?
Well, I think the next president needs to have moral clarity. I think you need to have moral clarity to understand that it's taxpayer money, not your own money. I think you need to have moral clarity to understand that when you're dealing with dictators in the world, that we always have to fight for democracies and human rights and protecting Americans and preventing war. And so when you look at Donald Trump, I have said, I think he was the right president at the right time. I agree with a lot of his policies, but his way is not my way. I don't have vengeance. I don't have vendettas. I don't take things personally. For me, it's very much about no drama, no whining, and getting results and getting them done. So I don't think that President Trump is the right president to go forward. I think it's time for a new generational leader that's going to go and make America proud again. That's what I'm going to try and do.
Governor DeSantis, what is your response to Chris Christie? Do you believe Donald Trump has the character to be president again?
Well, I'm running because I'm the guy that's going to be able to engineer a comeback for this country. I appreciated what President Trump did, but let's just be honest. He said he was going to build a wall and have Mexico pay for it. He did not deliver that. He said he was going to drain the swamp. He did not deliver that. He said he was going to hold Hillary accountable.
Neither will you.
And he let her off the hook. He said he was going to eliminate the debt, and he added $7.8 trillion to the debt. So we need to deliver and get this stuff done. And I think the difference between Nikki Haley and me. I listened to all that litany of stuff. I debated the governor of California, Gavin Newsom. I thought he lied a lot. Nikki Haley gives him a run for his money, and she may even be more liberal than Gavin Newsom is. We are in a situation here in Florida, and as Republicans, you need somebody that is going to be in there and fight for you. And Nikki Haley, anytime the going gets tough, anytime people come down, she caves. When you need someone standing and fight for you, don't look for Nikki Haley. You won't be able to find her if you had a search warrant.
Thank you, Governor. Governor Haley.
Look, I think I dealt with Russia, China, Iran, North Korea every day. No one ever said I caved. I defended America, and I fought for America.
It was Trump. You were following Trump's policies.
But I'll also say this. This is not a time.
You would have gone to war with all of them.
I wish Donald Trump was up here on this stage. He's the one that I'm running against. He's the one that I wish would be here. He needs to be defending his record. Right now, he's not defending the fact that he allowed us to have $8 trillion in debt over 4 years that our kids are never going to forgive us for. The fact that he didn't deal with China when it came to stealing intellectual property. The fact that they gave us COVID. The fact that they've gone and continued to put up Chinese police stations and continue to threaten our military. He didn't do enough to make sure that we were really standing with our friends and doing some other things. What we need is a leader that's not looking at 4 years and 8 years. We need a president that's looking at 20 and 30 years, because I want my kids to have a good future. I want them to have one without debt, one where they can read, one with secure borders, one where we have law and order, and one where America is strong.
Well,
thank you.
With all due respect,
it's like
for her to single out Donald Trump on China, and look, I think he could have been tougher on him 100%. When Nikki Haley was governor of South Carolina, she was the #1 governor in America for Republicans of bringing China into her state. She wrote a love letter to the ambassador saying that they were a great friend. She's on video saying China's a friend. She had a Chinese business 5 miles from a military base. There's a video of her on the website right in front of a Chinese flag saying that she works for them now. So that was her #1 achievement as governor, was bringing China into the state of South Carolina. So you say you're going to look 10, 20, 30 years down the road? Why wasn't she doing that then when people were raising the red flags about it? In Florida, I banned China from buying land in our state, and we kicked them out of our university. That's what you need to be doing.
We're going to talk about China in a little bit. I want
she does want 30 years of war,
which according to a recent Des Moines Register poll shows that the economy is the top issue for caucus goers here. So Governor Haley, the rate of inflation is down. Prices, though, are still high, and Americans are struggling to afford food, cars, and housing. What is the single most important policy that you would implement as president to make the essentials in Americans' lives more important?
I think we have to acknowledge that Republicans and Democrats have both done this. I mean, the fact that they've done all of this wasteful spending, they did a $2.2 trillion COVID stimulus.
They did $113 billion on Ukraine.
That's now left us with 80 million Americans on Medicaid, 42 million Americans on food stamps. That's a third of our country. What I will do is I think it's time we have an accountant in the White House. We have to have someone that respects taxpayer dollars. And we'll start by clawing back $100 billion of unspent COVID dollars that are still out there. We'll go, and instead of 87,000 IRS agents going after middle America, we'll go after the hundreds of billions of dollars of COVID fraud, 1 out of every $7. If 8% of our budget is interest, quit borrowing, cut up the credit cards. I had to balance a budget as governor. You have to balance a budget every day. Why is Congress the only group that refuses to balance a budget? We'll stop the spending. We'll stop the borrowing. We'll eliminate the pet projects and the earmarks, and I'll veto any spending bill that doesn't take us back to pre-COVID levels. And then we want to make sure that we allow the middle class to breathe. We're going to eliminate the federal gas and diesel tax in this country and cut taxes on the middle class and simplify those brackets. And then we want to make the small business tax cuts permanent. They made corporate tax cuts permanent, but they made small business tax cuts temporary. Small businesses are the heartbeat of America. We need to prove it by making those tax cuts permanent.
Governor DeSantis, what's your response? How would you make those essentials more affordable for Americans?
Well, I disagree with Ambassador Haley. We don't need an accountant in the White House. We need a leader in the White House, and that's what I would bring. I've spoken with Iowans, visiting all 99 counties, and also folks all across this country. The American dream is slipping away. People are working hard. They're getting the most out of their God-given ability. They're doing everything right, and they're falling further and further behind. trying to afford a new home today, your monthly mortgage payment would probably be twice as much as what it would have been if you were starting out 5 years ago. We have to make the economy work for those folks. Yes, I'm going to battle the spending. In Florida, you look, we have the national debt clock going up to 34 trillion. I see it. If you did a debt clock for the state of Florida, it would be counting down because we've paid down 25% of our state debt just since I've been governor. We're going to open up all energy for production because that will be deflationary.
Let's stop pretending that running a state is anything like running the country.
The gas tax. Then she tried to raise the gas tax on hardworking South Carolinians. Here's the thing. We need to fly a flag of bold colors, carrying the banner of putting the American people first, not the pale pastels of the warmed over corporatism of people like Nikki Haley.
Governor Haley, I want to bring you in, but because Governor DeSantis mentioned the gas tax, you do want to eliminate the federal gas tax. And that tax generated approximately $40 billion in 2022 and helps pay for road construction and repair. So how would you fix America's roads and bridges if you take that money away?
Well, first of all, bless his heart, DeSantisLies.com. We have never raised a tax. I've never raised a tax at all. Bless his heart. DeSantisLies.com.
Governor DeSantis, she has the floor.
So I can tell you that we killed the gas tax multiple times. But what we said is if you want to raise the gas tax, you have to reduce the income tax by 5 times that amount. They didn't want to do it. We've killed taxes every step of the way. But if he's going to talk about his economy, I think what we should say is why does Florida have the highest property insurance in the country? Why is it that it is named the American hotspot for inflation? Why is it that his state is now known to have the highest cost of living increases? And why is it that they're saying senior citizens can no longer afford to live in Florida? So that's the first thing I'll say. We don't need him doing that to our country. When it comes to the gas tax, when we eliminate that federal tax, the money is collected in the states and they send it to the feds. The feds attach a lot of strings to it and send it back. 75% comes from the state, 25% comes from the federal government. What they do when they add those strings is they pay for a lot of things that aren't roads, green spaces, sidewalks, all of those things, but they attach strings. I want that money to stay in the states. I want the states to be able to decide how to spend it. I don't want Washington bureaucrats deciding what we need for scenery and green space and all those other things. I want every state, including the state of Iowa, to make the decisions on how they spend their road spending instead of the federal government.
Governor DeSantis, your response?
Right. She kind of admitted that she did try to raise the gas tax, and she's on video saying this. I know she'll say it. She never said it, but she did.
You snipped it.
She did.
You took a little piece of that. That is not true.
She also raised taxes.
Governor Haley, Governor DeSantis
in South Carolina. That's on the record. And she even proposed a tax on groceries at one point. But I'm just thinking, have you seen your grocery bill lately? That's one of the things that's hitting working people the most, that groceries are going up probably twice as much what you do. But I also think it's important that we lift people up. So in Florida, we eliminated all sales tax on every baby item. Diapers, wipes, strollers, cribs. We want families to be able to prosper in this country. One of the things that's causing so much problem is the breakdown in the American family. We've done a lot in Florida to be able to rejuvenate that, but we need to make it easier for people to raise children in this country so that we can have strong families and a strong country.
Governor DeSantis, at a CNN town hall last week, you said you support a flat tax, which is a single income tax.
Oh no, HR 25!
Under your plan, would working families pay the same tax rate as billionaires?
I would only do it if people are better off than they are now. I mean, I want people paying less taxes. Actually, if you think the last year we have numbers for, the federal government took in the highest percentage of taxes from the economy since World War II. And yet, they're going deep into debt. We have a spending problem in this country. It's not a tax problem in this country. And if you had something that was simple and transparent, not only would that be better for economic growth, it's also better to end the weaponization of government. The IRS has been weaponized against conservatives going back to the Obama administration. I was there for that. No one's been held accountable for doing that. You look at the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Department of Justice, the weaponization of federal power ends the day I become the president of the United States. There's going to be a new sheriff in town. We're going to restore the constitutional accountability that our founding fathers envisioned when they formatted the Constitution. And, you know, I've talked to folks who have overbearing federal agencies. I mean, you have farmers who have the EPA coming on their farmland because there's maybe a puddle there, waters of the United States. Give me a break. So we're going to reduce the size of government, but we're also going to reduce the scope of government. And in Florida, I've actually delivered on this. Florida has the lowest percentage of state government workers per capita in the country, and the cost of our state government employees is the lowest in the country. No wonder why we're paying down debt while we're cutting taxes for people. That's the way you do it.
Governor DeSantis, 15-second point of clarification. The question was whether or not working families would pay the same amount.
They would pay less than what they're paying now. The way I view it is, okay, you'd exempt people, so you would pay no tax for working class people. It would only be as you get above, because I think the first 40, 50 grand, that's just to subsist. And even some places you can't even do that. So you would have no tax up to a certain point, and then it would just be a single rate. So if somebody makes $100,000, they pay a certain amount. If someone makes $200,000, they make twice as much, and they pay twice as much.
Governor Haley,
I mean, first of all, you just can't trust what he says. I mean, that's the biggest thing. We don't have a grocery tax in South Carolina, and I never once raised taxes, period.
Just stop
but
it.
what I will tell you is,
you're like the honest politician. Just stop it.
Why did he promise he'd never raise the debt limit, and he turned around and he raised it? And then you want to go and you see one side of what he says early on, and then he changes it. So here he goes and he says that he is all for energy independence. He wants to get the EPA out of the way. Well, why did he run on the fact that he wanted to ban fracking and ban offshore drilling? Why did he go and author that legislation to eliminate the renewable fuel standard that matters so much? And why now is he suddenly coming to Iowa and saying, oh, never mind, I don't mean all of that? Why did he call Trump and say that he wanted him to stop drilling 9 miles into federal waters? Why is he now saying this? Why do you come to the people of Iowa and say one thing when you campaigned and on day 2 of your office, you banned fracking, you banned offshore drilling, you turn around and
Dak, what was that?
That dead horse, that's been debunked multiple times.
Ron, it's true.
We're looking forward to be able to open up energy.
Oh my gosh, I'm so tired of here
in the Midwest. With biofuels. I'm the only one that checked all the boxes from the Iowa Renewable Fuel Standard, because I've actually visited all 99 counties. I've actually shown up to people's farms. I've sat and I've listened to people about what they're going through, how their economy is structured, and how it's important that we're producing energy here in the United States. I never want to go hat in hand like Biden has done to Venezuela or Saudi and begging for energy. We're going to be able to open up production. We're going to choose Midland over Moscow. We're going to choose the Marcellus Shale over the Mullahs, and we're going to choose the Bakken over Beijing. Energy independence it's good for consumers. It's good to reduce inflation. It's one of the best things we can do for our national security. So
I have a whole thumbnail and everything going on here.
Reverse Biden's Green New Deal and the electric vehicle mandates will save the American automobile.
Thank you, Governor. This has been one of the biggest years for illegal border crossings into the United States. Last month alone, 225,000 migrants illegally crossed the southern border. It's a record high, overwhelming the Border Patrol resources that are already stretched thin. Mayors across the country say their cities are being pushed to a breaking point. Governor DeSantis, former President Trump famously promised to build a wall on the southern border. He obviously did not get that done. You have promised to finish the job. How will you succeed where he failed?
We will build a wall. We will actually have Mexico pay for it in the way that I thought Donald Trump was. We're going to charge fees on remittances that workers send to foreign countries, billions of dollars. We'll build the wall. He also promised record deportations. Donald Trump deported fewer people than Barack Obama did when he was president.
Yeah, because they didn't get in.
8 million people just in 4 years. They all have to go back. We have to enforce the rule of law in this country. Think about what's happening to our country. Just this week, we saw the news that a school in Brooklyn, New York, had the kids stay home. They were not able to go to school, told you can't go get an in-person education. Why? Because the city's commandeering the school to house illegal aliens in it. Talk about putting Americans last. You're putting these kids out of an education because you can't control the border. Biden has failed in this endeavor. He has not taken care that the laws of this country be faithfully executed.
I need a link.
Do not trust Nikki Haley with illegal immigration. That's like having the fox guard the hen house. She's on tape at the Aspen Institute. She'll say she didn't say it. She was chastising conservatives, saying it's disrespectful to illegal aliens to say that they're criminals. They're violating the law. It's disrespectful when people come to this country illegally and impose burdens on our communities and run drugs into this country. That's what's disrespectful. She's weak on immigration. She's bankrolled by people who want open borders, and she said there shouldn't be a limit on immigration. You should work with corporate CEOs.
Thanks, Governor.
That is pale pastels. That
Governor,
is warmed
thank
over
you so much. So, Governor Haley, Governor DeSantis, and also Donald Trump are attacking you for that comment in 2015 in which you said undocumented immigrants should not be called, quote, criminals. At the time, the full context is you said, quote, we don't need to talk about them as criminals. They're not. They're families that want a better life, and they're desperate to get here, unquote. Do you still feel that way?
I saw them. When I was at the United Nations, I saw them. That doesn't mean we should let them into our country. I mean, first of all, I will tell you that when I was governor of South Carolina, we passed the toughest illegal immigration law in the country. Obama sued us over it, and we won. We fought Obama on illegal immigration. We fought Obama on migrant kids. We fought Obama on Syrian refugees. We fought Obama on Guantanamo Bay prisoners. I have always said we are a country of laws. The second we stop being a country of laws, we give up everything this country was founded on. But I will tell you, in passing that toughest illegal immigration law in the country, we passed E-Verify, which I want to take national, which is where businesses have to prove that the people they hire are in this country legally. I passed it within 6 months of being governor. Ron didn't pass it for 5 years. He only waited to pass it when he decided to run for president. What we need to do is not just ban a wall. We need to put 25,000 Border Patrol and ICE agents on the ground and let them do their job. We need to defund sanctuary cities once and for all. No more safe havens for illegal immigrants. We need to make sure we go back to the Remain in Mexico policy so that no one even steps foot on U.S. soil. And instead of catch and release, we need to go to catch and deport. That's the only way we'll stop the incentives of these illegal immigrants coming across. Biden turned around and gave 500,000 Venezuelans temporary protective status. That's 500,000 driver's licenses, 500,000 social security numbers. All that does is incentivize them to pick up the phone, call their family members, and tell them to come
Governor
back.
DeSantis.
She did bring, when she was governor, she did bring Syrian refugees, and she got criticized for that.
That is not
she
true.
Also, in her comment,
Hold on one second.
Oh my
Governor.
God! Stop with your stupid.
Your turn to Governor DeSantis.
It's noted. So the disrespect comment. She's talking about that they're all families. If you look right now at the border, these are military-age males, many of them, and they're coming from all across this world, not just from Central America. In fact, you've got them from China, Iran, Russia, the Middle East. When I was down there a couple of years ago, because I've sent people down there, you had people from Libya and Haiti. This is a ticking time bomb for this country. There are, of course, going to be terrorist cells that have come in. It's like the lowest cost way to be able to harm this country. Just
fine. My stupid poll.
If he was at $40 a barrel, Putin wouldn't have done it. Now, he wouldn't have done it for another reason. Me. He wouldn't have done it.
I blame all of you.
He also wouldn't have done it because he couldn't have done it because oil wasn't high enough. At $100 a barrel, he made a lot of money, and he's making a lot of money because it's so high.
So when
it's also what caused the inflation, because energy is so big. It's such a big deal that when energy goes up, if you make donuts, if you make hamburgers, anything you do, you have trucks that deliver your product.
It's 175.25. What should I do?
Your ovens.
I'm just some Jew in a tunnel.
It's all energy, and
I'm helpless.
Have the highest cost of energy in history. You know, when they talk about New Hampshire has the highest price of energy, the highest cost of energy of any state in the nation.
That's true.
They should vote for me because I'm going to cut their energy price in half.
So when Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis hit you again and again on this $8 trillion figure and call you a big government Republican, what do you say to them?
I say very simply, we were starting to pay down debt. We were going to pay down a lot of debt. When COVID came along, if I didn't inject this country with money, you would have had a depression, the likes of which you've never seen. You had to inject money. We gave businesses that were going bankrupt, temporarily bankrupt, but they needed money. We helped businesses. If I didn't do that, you would have had a depression in this country. That was a very good investment. And now what they should be doing, instead of the kind of debt that they're building at record levels, they should be paying down their debt, and they ought to go into the energy business instead of this green new scam business that they're in.
But what about the future? What about cutting spending? $34 trillion in debt. You know, let's look at what you would do in terms of getting that number down. What would you get rid of?
We have a lot of cutting, but we also have a lot of income. We have more liquid gold under our feet, energy, oil and gas, than any other country in the world, more than Saudi Arabia, more than Russia. And when I came in, we were number 4. When I left, you know, not that long a period of time, 4 years, we were number 1 by a lot. And we were soon going to double up Saudi Arabia and Russia combined. And we were going to make a lot of money. We have a lot of potential income. DeSantis wants to cut Social Security and Medicare. Nikki Haley wants to cut Social Security and Medicare. Nikki Haley wanted to raise the age from 65 to 74, 75.
Right?
Only for young people in their 20s. I mean, that's going to run out of money.
That's what they say.
So at some point, someone has to address it, right?
That's what they say when it starts. They say only for young people. It's only for young people. And then it doesn't work for young people, and they end up getting up to people that are of the age where it matters. No good.
All right, let's go to Kim, a small business owner from Rhines. Is that correct?
He's not going to challenge.
Kim, where are you?
That is correct.
Do you know who you're caucusing for Monday?
I am proud to say I am a caucus captain
For?
President Trump.
With a white and gold hat.
I have that white and gold hat.
Thank you very much. That's beautiful. Thank you very much.
Vince.
What's your question for the former president?
You said that you can take care of the border in 24 hours after taking office. How will you gather the several millions that have already entered our country illegally and return them to their country of origin?
Great question. It's not sustainable for our country. We have millions and millions of people here. It is not sustainable. Did you see in New York City where they're getting the regular students out and they're putting migrants in their place?
New York students switching over to remote learning so that they can house in the schools illegal aliens.
We're bringing everybody back to where they came from. We have no choice. We have no choice.
You know,
Thank you.
Denise is
She
here
asked
as
how.
well. Denise,
That's a tough question.
where are you?
He didn't really answer
now,
how.
Denise came to our town hall last night. She came in saying that she was, if I remember correctly, you were leaning towards President Trump, but you did say you heard some things last night that you liked. So where are you tonight?
I spoke with a lot of my really close friends after last night. They were all up and wanted to know how it went. And we got back to President Trump. We just
I love you. You were waiting. He just mentioned, I think, something that you're concerned about. What's your question?
You just answered part of it. That our kids were displaced in New York City in the place of illegal migrants. So what I want to know, in the spirit of making America great again, can you do something about the sanctuary cities?
Yeah. Well, they're going to be ended because the Democrats are going to end them because you can't sustain it. If you look at New York, you have a mayor of New York who now is really hostile to the administration because New York City, that's my place. I love New York. It's gone. It's had a tough time. The previous mayor was the worst mayor in the history of our country.
Not happy.
De Blasio. Do you ever hear of De Blasio? The worst.
He was the worst.
But what's happened is
he really was.
This country cannot sustain 15 or 16 million people because I think that's the real number. I think by the time his administration ends, and hopefully quickly, it's going to be 18 million people. That's bigger than New York State. That's bigger than just about every state other than one or two. 18 million people. Remember this.
He's talking about 18.
Many of those people come from jails and prisons. Many of those people come from mental institutions and insane asylums. And many of those people are terrorists. You know, I saw on Fox the other day, it was horrible, but beautiful because from my standpoint, in 2016, they had no terrorists that they know of that came into the country. None. You know, I had the travel ban. They call it the Trump travel ban. They tried to make a big deal. The Supreme Court very intelligently approved it. Without that, we would have had blow-ups. So we had no terrorist attacks at all during my 4 years. We had the Trump travel ban. And by the way, Iran was broke. Iran was broke. I said to China, if you buy oil from Iran, you're not dealing in here. They immediately dropped. India, France, Italy, all of these countries were buying from Iran. Iran would give out billions of dollars to terrorists. They had no money. I watched a Democrat congressman the other day on one of the shows, and he said, I'll say one thing about Trump, he said, Trump. I'll say one thing about Trump. When he did that number on Iran, they were broke. They were absolutely broke. When I left, they were broke. They had no money. There was no money for Hamas, for Hezbollah. There was no money for anybody. They had no money. And you would say that too. I mean, I think even the two of you would say they were absolutely stoned. And you know how much money they have now? In 3 years under Biden, they have $250 billion. Again, the energy business is a big business. And not to mention the 5 hostages that they paid $6 billion for. Not to mention they got $10 billion for supplying some electricity to Iraq, which, by the way, they own. And Iraq has $300 billion, and essentially it's a subsidiary, of Iran. It should have never happened. Iraq. Remember, I used to say a long time ago.
Please check the banner down below.
Now I'm sort of a civilian, but I think I'll never be quite a civilian again. I'd love to be. But I used to say, don't go into Iraq. Don't do it. Don't do it. But if you're going to do it, keep the oil. Remember, keep the oil? They didn't keep the oil. So they have $300 billion. And we have nothing. We have nothing. You know, they used to say about wars, to the victor belong the spoils. We go into some place, we obliterate it, and then we leave. We are run by fools. We're run by stupid people. But we ran it very smart for 4 years, and we won everything. We won everything.
Mr. President, you're talking a lot about policy. You get questions about what a second term is going to look like. When you're in your rallies, you spend a lot of time talking about retribution.
Be nice.
And so there are questions about how much a second term of a Donald Trump presidency, second term, would be about retribution and looking backwards and grievances, and how much would be looking forward.
Well, first of all, a lot of people would say that that's not so bad. Look what they did. Russia hoax, the FBI Twitter hoax, the 51 intelligence agents hoax, all of these different hoaxes that they did. I mean, you know, a lot of people would say that's probably quite normal. I'm not going to have time for retribution. We're going to make this country so successful again. I'm not going to have time for retribution. And remember this, our ultimate retribution is success. When we had just prior to the China virus coming in, if you don't mind, I'd like to be accurate as opposed to COVID. It is the China virus. It came out of Wuhan. And I said a long time ago in your show, it came out of Wuhan. They were saying it came out of caves, bat caves, 2,000 miles away. It came out of Italy. It came out of France. No, it came out of Wuhan, the labs. And by the way, I don't
75%.
think it was done. I think it was done out of incompetence. That's what I think. I believe that the scientist went out, said hello to his girlfriend, and that was the end of that. She died, and then people started dying all over the place. But who knows? Who knows? I can tell you one thing. I got along with President Xi, but I took in $400 billion in tariffs and taxes from China. And one of the reasons China's not doing so well today is because of those tariffs. And
my votes are transparent.
You know, he got paid off by China after all, so he wants to help the people that gave him a lot of money. But he's a Manchurian candidate in a true sense. He got money from China. He got money from Russia. You remember the debate where Chris Wallace, how is he doing, I wonder? But Chris Wallace, when I said to Biden, I asked him a question. I said, how come you got $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? And Chris Wallace wouldn't let me ask me. I said, why are you stopping this? Now it's turned out to be a big deal. He got $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife. I tell you this, we're going to have a success that's so great that hopefully, I won't have time for retribution. There won't be retribution. There'll be success.
Mr. President, before we wrap up this, you know, there is this report, House Democrats documents that say that nearly $8 million in payments to your businesses from foreign governments, China included, Saudi Arabia, while you were in office. They say Article 1 of the Constitution says you can't accept money from foreign governments while president. Would you pledge to divest from your business in the second term as other presidents have done? So that's what they're reporting.
I own hotels all over I don't get free money. Somebody rents a hotel room, et cetera, et cetera. Much money I gave back. In fact, I didn't have to do it. You know, George Washington was a very rich man. People don't know that. In his essentially White House, which wasn't built, but they had an office, he had a business desk and he had a country desk right next to each other. You're allowed to do that. I didn't do it. I put everything in trust. And if I have a hotel and somebody comes in from China, That's a small amount of money. And it sounds like a lot of money. That's a small, but I was doing services for that. People were staying in these massive hotels, these beautiful hotels, because I have the best hotels. I have the best clubs. I have the best clubs. I have great stuff.
He's so
and they
Trump.
stay there and they pay. I don't get $8 million for doing nothing like Hunter. I don't get $500,000. I don't get $500,000 for doing a painting. It's not a bad idea, I guess, if you can get away with it. When I heard that, when I said there's no way they get away with that, but they got away with that, I guess they got away with it. No, we have, there was an emoluments lawsuit against me where the radical left sued me for that, and I won the suit. And the judge said, they go to his hotels. What's he going to do?
There you go. We want to hear more from Iowa voters. Sure. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back here in Des Moines with more of our town hall with former President Donald Trump.
We're all hoping he goes through retribution. We all want to see retribution. I'm going to peek in.
A good cotton farmer wakes up.
I'm going to peek in on DeSantis, Haley. We'll peek in. I'll come back here. You won your vote. You won your stupid vote. I have to now work on making a new thumbnail, change all my things, start explaining to people that I start here, I switch over. It's like, oh my God. That's why I said 60%. I was like, if I promise people I'm going to be doing that, I feel like uncomfortable backing out of that. But yeah, all right. I'm watching it.
Is actually what will get them to stop coming.
Support the mass removal of Palestinians from Gaza.
So as president, I am not going to tell them to do that. I think there's a lot of issues with that. But if they make the calculation that to avert a second Holocaust, they need to do that. I think some of these Palestinian Arabs, Saudi Arabia should take some. Egypt should take some. They've never been willing to accept any of these folks in their own neighborhood.
Thank you, Governor Haley.
Well, first of all, we need to understand the reason we need to support Israel is Israel's a bright spot in a tough neighborhood. They are the tip of the spear when it comes to defeating terrorism. It has never.
Way to make me want to turn you off. That's like the one topic I was like, I just don't want to hear about. Good job, Nikki. I try giving you a chance. And you make me prefer watching a freaking commercial. That's how bad you are. That's how bad she is. She made me prefer watching some old guy being fed soup. I'd rather watch an old guy being hefted into a wheelchair than listening to Nikki Haley talk about foreign policy. Yeah, that's what I'd rather. Some old dude spraying down spraying down his boat in his arm. What the hell is Blue Emu? I don't even know what that is. It doesn't sound like something you should be putting on your body. These commercials are way better without any volume. Way better. Way better. Yeah, so let me check out what's going on over here in Rumble. Am I good? Did I miss anything in Rumble? Those of you who joined late, I apologize. I was forced. If you check down below, my chat was screaming for me to do a poll about switching over to Trump, and I said in my poll, I said I'm not switching unless I get 60%. Because I was like, I want to have a significant majority. If like the Trump thing would inch it out, I was like, I'm not taking it. Came in at 75, 73%. Let's just do 3 out of 4 people want me to watch Trump instead of watching Nikki Haley and DeSantis saying, you're a liar. No, you. No, you. No, you. No, you. You want me to watch that debate? They need to do better. Do better than that. So, yeah. Do better. Apparently they weren't impressing my chat. They weren't impressing them. I don't think so. Vins. How do I say that dance 1 cent? No, what? I don't even know what no irony intended. I don't know what I mean what $1.99 for what? Everyone's paying the $2 now. See, $2. $2. Let me check over my diggers. My chat in locals, which wow, what happened in locals? Where's my chat? What happened? What happened? Wow. Oh, you guys need volume for this, don't you?
With former President Trump. We're glad to have all of you with us tonight. We want to try to get in a few more questions here. We have a lot of good ones. Let's go to Rebecca. She is a mom of 6 from Ogden. There she is. Hi, Rebecca.
Hi.
There's no way he wins that poll.
Decided leaning towards one person or another?
All got leanings here in Iowa. Yes. Yeah, well, for me, it all comes down to this question.
Okay.
So between you, sir, President Trump, and Ron DeSantis, because you both talk a lot about pro-life, your record, and that's my number one issue and the cry of my heart is justice for all people. And I've been, vocal and celebrating with you all of your pro-life victories from the past. But then in this campaign, you've also blamed pro-lifers for some of the GOP losses around the country, and you've called heartbeat laws like Iowa's terrible. And so I'd just like some clarity on this because it's such an important question to me. Okay. I'd like for you to reassure me that you can protect all life, every person's right to life without compromise.
Oh my God.
So that's a great question. I appreciate it.
No, it's not. It's a disaster.
You wouldn't be asking that question, even talking about the issue, because for 54 years, they were trying to get Roe v. Wade terminated, and I did it, and I'm proud to have done it. They wanted to get it back, right? You wouldn't have that. There would be no question. Nobody else was going to get that done but me. Yep. And we did it, and we did something that was a miracle. When I walked onto the stage today, a gentleman in the back, probably works for Fox, nice guy, said, "Sir, I'd like to thank you." I said, "For what?" He said, "You saved 2 million lives in the last 3 years. You saved 2 million lives." And I said, "Thank you very much." I knew exactly what he meant. 2 million lives. And nobody's done more in that regard than me. Now, I happen to be for the exceptions, like Ronald Reagan, with the life of the mother, rape, incest. I just have to be there. I think probably 78% or so, Paul, about 78%. It was Ronald Reagan. He was for it. I was for it. But I will say this. You have to win elections. Otherwise, you're going to be back where you were, and you can't let that ever happen again. You got to win elections. If you look at it, Ron DeSantis, I don't know what he really believes, because you never know with a politician, and he's just another politician as far as I'm concerned. But his poll numbers have gone down to a level that he's going to be out of the race very soon. He's going to be out very soon. I watched him last night. He's standing up with his shoes, his fancy shoes. And he's going to be out of the race within,
oh my
a lot
God.
of people say before New Hampshire.
So merciless.
I don't know if that were the reason. I hope it wasn't the reason. I hope it's for other reasons. I can see a lot of other reasons why he shouldn't be. But he's doing very, very poorly. It happened to coincide with that, because a lot of people say if you talk 5 or 6 weeks, a lot of women don't know if they're pregnant in 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I want to get something where people are happy. This has been
he's massaging it really well.
Our country apart for 50 years. Nobody's been able to do anything. And again, you can only ask that question, and you ask it brilliantly. And I understand exactly where you're coming from. I love where you're coming from. But we still have to win elections.
So I can't answer that question if you want me to freaking win.
Some great Republicans, and they're great on the issue, and you would love them on the issue. And a lot of them have just been decimated in the election. Decimated. I mean, absolutely. So we're going to come up with something that people want and people like. I would love you to, first of all, you have to go with your heart. Okay, you have to go with your heart first. Go with your heart, your mind, go with it. But you do also have to put in there a little bit. You have to win elections. But if it weren't for me with Roe v. Wade, you wouldn't even be talking about this up. You wouldn't be asking that question, because we're right back. I remember this. They're the radicals. We're not the radicals, because they'll kill a baby. Remember, I had the debate with crooked Hillary Clinton, which I don't call her crooked anymore. I use it now for Joe Biden, as you know. I call her beautiful Hillary. She's a beautiful woman. But in the debate with Hillary Clinton, I said, she's willing to rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month. And, I never heard this. It happened to me. It just came to me during that debate. I didn't go up there thinking I was going to say that. And she even winced. Nobody wants to see that happening after a certain period of time. Nobody. They're the radicals because they're willing to kill the baby in 8 months, 9 months, or even after birth. If you remember the former governor of Virginia, where he said,
he's totally dancing.
You kill the baby after the 9th month.
And he has
even
to. You can't.
You set the baby aside.
Give the answer she wants.
And you have a conversation with the mother.
He's
and if the conversation, can you imagine? But these are the radicals. We're not the radicals. We are not the radicals. But we're living in a time when there has to be a little bit of a concession one way or the other. And I think
states.
I want to get it right. I have to get it right. But without what I did, you would never even be asking that question because there was no chance that was going to happen. For
he's trying to get the credit
years
for Dobbs.
They campaigned on that issue and nobody pulled it off but me. So I think you're going to be happy in the end.
All right, let's
say he pulled it off.
Thank you very much for that question.
It would be hard to come up with.
To Bo. Bo, you're from Madrid, Iowa.
Madrid.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Madrid.
I knew I could get through every city I thought. Well, Madrid. Do you know how you're going to caucus?
Trump, 100%.
Oh, I like him.
You do have a question.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, how would you de-escalate global tensions and keep the United States out of foreign wars?
Yeah, do it through peace through strength. I just saw something where I was the only president for 78 years. No war started with. Now I wiped out ISIS. I did a thing that was, I won't go into names. I won't go into specifics, but we did a thing that nobody thought was possible. Did it very quickly. I withdrew from Syria. I withdrew from Iraq. I withdrew. They want to put people back. We're in countries that don't even want us. We're with countries that a lot of you never even heard the names of these countries. There's a great leader, in my opinion, is very strong. Some people say it's terrible to say that, but he is. Viktor Orban, he's the prime minister of Hungary. And they asked him, what would you do? There are wars all over the world right now. He said, what I do is make sure the American people vote for Donald Trump for president, because when he was president, China feared him. I don't want to be feared, but he used the term. I'm not using the term. President Xi's a very tough cookie. But I think they did fear us. China feared him. Russia feared him. Everybody. I even got along with Kim Jong-un. Getting along with people with hundreds of nuclear weapons is not a bad thing. They want to make it like a bad thing. It's a very good thing. But peace through strength. They didn't want to mess around. It would have never happened in Ukraine. Russia would have never gone in. Would have never happened. The recent attack on Israel would have never happened. 0% chance that was going to happen. They see a weak president in our country, and they did something that was unthinkable. So we're going to have peace through strength. We're not going to have to fight.
So on the other side,
with that being said, you always have to be prepared. And I rebuilt our entire military. And think of it, Biden gave $85 billion worth of our military to Afghanistan so stupidly. Brand new tanks and planes and everything. 700,000 rifles and guns. 70,000 vehicles, many of them armor-plated vehicles.
He was great in that abortion question.
And by the way, people died. 13 great soldiers died. I've gotten to know the families very well. Many horribly hurt.
General
and hundreds of people killed when you include both. Hundreds of people
That's
killed.
Treason. That should have been treason.
In the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. So I really appreciate the question. And I appreciate very much that you're with me, and I'm with you too.
So from the other side of the party, there are many like Governor Haley who said that you are now more of an isolationist than you were, and that you got many concessions from NATO members as president to increase their defense budgets.
Hundreds of billions of dollars.
But there's a real concern what a second Trump term would mean. Would you be committed to NATO, for example, in a second Trump term?
Depends if they treat us properly. Look, NATO is taking advantage of our country. The European countries took advantage of, I want to use a word starting with an S, but I don't want to do it because I see some young, very good-looking children in the audience, and I assume they're watching on television. But they took advantage of us on trade. And then they took advantage of us on our military protection. Of the 28 countries at the time, only 8 countries were paid up. We were paying the difference. And I went to them, I said, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you. And they said, do you mean that? I said, I mean that. And the next day, billions of dollars poured into NATO.
That's hot
garbage. The reason they have money right now to prosecute what they're doing with helping Ukraine is because of the money I got him.
Yeah.
So
had negotiated with the Taliban. We had to do it. We had to leave 13 people get killed there.
Thank you very much.
Stop making excuses for dead Americans at Biden's,
So we're going to be right back
Biden's
with just a
ledger.
quick final segment right after this timeout.
Well, how embarrassing. How embarrassing. Untenable position that we leave behind billions, and we leave the Taliban as the 5th best funded army in the planet with the amount of weapons that Biden leaves behind. So we left behind there billions of dollars in weapons and 13 dead soldiers, and you want to blame that on Trump? Just seriously, just think for a second. Stop with the TDS. Stop with the idiocy and the nonsense. And like, what it's like, oh, Trump bad. The dude was phenomenal, exceptional. No, I'm not. You know what? I'm selling him too short. He was literally the greatest president in American history with respect to foreign affairs. And it's not close. Literally not close. The guy eliminated ISIS, which was the biggest threat in the world, eliminated them without the loss of a single American life. You're telling me he put us in a bad position? Oh, we had to do it for the Taliban. Oh, we had a responsibility. He made a promise to the Taliban. We had to listen to the Taliban. Oh my gosh, we had to listen to the Taliban. Like that, like a weak, feckless loser president that we have right now, who's like, oh, well, I had to do it for the Taliban. We should have been out of there beforehand, if not for freaking Milley basically committing treason and lying to Trump. But the entire thing with us pulling out of Afghanistan and leaving behind billions of dollars in weapons and 13 Americans brought home with a flag draped over their freaking coffins because of his incompetence and his stupidity and the pathetic, lousy joke of an excuse of how you pull out of a country. Where people are desperately flooding out of there and hanging onto airplanes as they're taking off because the guy has no clue how to pull troops out of a country. And you're sitting here saying he put us in an untenable position. I mean, listen to yourself. Just think for a second. Like, is this really something that you feel like this is totally blamable on Trump? Get your head out of your ass. Because you sound like a moron. Who actually thinks that 8 months after he leaves office, when you can't figure out how to not leave behind the 5th best military in the world? How we basically said, oh yeah, all the interpreters. Listen, I don't know, we had 4 billion interpreters. We have to flooding in here. I have no idea who the hell they are. This guy negotiated with North Korea. He actually knew how to make friends with enemies, so we don't have to go to war with them. When he says peace through strength, unlike stupid freaking Nikki Haley, let's go to World War III with anyone who pisses us off. He actually, when he says peace through strength, he means it the way it actually was intended, which is if you have strength and you make it very evident that you're not afraid to use that strength, you very, very, very rarely ever need to. As opposed to Nikki, who was like, oh, let's spend billions of dollars in Ukraine and throw it into the Middle East and throw it into Iran and throw it into Taiwan. And anyone who's ticking us off, oh, you better watch out because we're going to be spending another $100 billion or 50,000 troops or whatever the hell she wants to send all around the globe. And you sit here with this joke comment. Look, I'm the first to admit, this guy, he exaggerates like a lot. He says 18 million people illegal. You don't have to exaggerate there. I wish he wouldn't, because frankly, the number 11 million or 12 million is still pathetic and it's embarrassing. So you don't even have to inflate that number. It's humiliating. It's far and away the worst immigration president. Like, probably we take the worst policies in American history with respect to foreign policies, and I count southern border as part of our foreign policy because this is keeping invading force out 8 million people. That's more than Missourians. There are more people, more illegal aliens who have come in under Biden's reign than people living in the freaking state of Missouri. I'm not talking about the state of Rhode Island. I'm not talking about the state of Delaware. I'm talking about one of the biggest freaking states in the center of our country, and 8 million people so far. You're sitting here saying, you have issues with the fact that he exaggerates. Who gives a damn? Is Dobbs really on his ledger? No, because frankly, any Republican he would have put in there would have signed off on Dobbs. You're sitting here with this idiocy. It's unbelievable. Like, just get your head out of your ass. Seriously, get your head out. Just pull it out. Like you're suffocating. Literally suffocating. Is it over?
Are 3 town halls. They braved the elements. There are some elements out there, and asked some really important questions that are really top issues for the candidates in this race.
Did you see that shot outside?
Yeah.
It is snowing like crazy out there as President Trump greets some of the people in the crowd here. We also want to thank this Iowa Event Center. There it is, for hosting us.
All right, they're over there. They're over there. Okay. Amen. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. You want to tell me you don't like him? You think he's rude? You think whatever? You think that he's a despot? You think he's tyrannical? You think that he doesn't show enough love for the 0.006% of this country, which has been baffled into thinking that they can't figure out what gender they are? That's why you have an issue with him. That, oh my gosh, he's such a terrible human being. Okay, fine. I think that your position is bizarre, but at least I can understand why it is that you would prefer the social policies of some of the lunatics out there, because your mind has been infected by them. But to sit here is trying to explain on foreign policy, like it's indefensible. I mean, it's literally indefensible. There's no argument which makes any sense to say, oh yeah, that it's his fault. It's like Biden. This is how bad Biden is. He's so bad that every failing he has trying to find some way to trigger it back that's actually really Donald Trump's fault. Pathetic. When actually any moderate indicator of success that he has is really because of what he inherited post-COVID. So that's why we have a surge in jobs. Any positive thing we have actually is a legacy from the Trump administration. The best months for as far as illegal immigrants, the fewest people coming in here were in the early months right after Trump left office, because people living south of the border didn't figure out yet that, oh my God, we can just walk across now. That's why when Ron DeSantis is sitting there saying like, oh, he didn't do enough on border. Well, you know what? He certainly looks like a hero on border today. Aggravated. All right, where was I? Mocking Training says about Afghan. Trump made a deal with Taliban, IOT withdrawal, depending on them doing certain things. They didn't fill those things so many times, so we stayed in longer. Biden pulled out for the deadline, and we're here now. Yeah. No, you misunderstood me, Mocking Training. I'm saying he left the Taliban. He left so many weapons behind. Like it was like socks from a camping trip, but instead it was just trucks and planes that he left behind for the Taliban, that he left them as the 5th strongest army on the planet. That's what I was saying. Not that we're the 5th. We're still the number 1, with, supposedly. Still the number 1 army in the world, as far as, dollars invested. But I'm saying is that's how strong that's how much he left behind in weapons. That was my point. I didn't say we're number 5. I was saying he made the Taliban went from a bunch of ragtags to being the 5th most dangerous army. They're more dangerous than France. All right. So I guess I should go back. I'm gonna have to put up a new poll now, whether I should stay with this thing here. Where were you, CNN? And you're stupid. Let's go back.
Again, telling lies, DeSantisLies.com, because he thinks it makes him look bigger. But in the one
She's still saying the same
you
stupidity.
for president in one state,
We
you're
left for
invisible
40
in
minutes
New
and she's
Hampshire,
still saying
you're
the same
invisible in
idiocy.
South Carolina, you're in 5th place, you've got $150 million and you've gone down in the polls in Iowa. Why should we think you can manage or do anything in this country?
Thank you. Governor DeSantis.
Thanks,
This
Ben.
is a great window into leadership.
Oh, you figured out the
Focus on a lot
$1.99
of
thing? You saved a
political,
penny.
process
Good job.
stuff, things that no voter cares about. And she couldn't tell you why she failed to deliver school choice to people in her state after she promised it. So she says somehow that is the indicative of, no, leadership is about producing results. We've produced the
I'm
results
watching these
in
debates,
Florida.
and the more I
We
watch,
did
the more I
universal
understand why
school
Trump
choice.
was
We
like, I
cut
don't need
taxes.
this
We banned
nonsense.
sanctuary cities. On down the line, everything I promised I delivered. She doesn't have a rationale for why she couldn't get it done. That is poor leadership. You look at me, everything I promised I would do, I've delivered.
Not until
and
you
can
got a
expect
supermajority.
nothing less
Before that, you
from
got
the
nothing down
President of the
on
United
We're
States.
gonna move on now.
I need to respond to that.
Go ahead.
So you want to talk about leadership, and he wants to go and demean and put down. Let me tell you what leadership is. Leadership is the fact that I went into South Carolina that had 11% unemployment rate. Leadership is the fact that we turned it into an economic powerhouse, building planes, building cars, building tires. We were named the Beast of the Southeast. We moved the 11% unemployment down to 4%. We announced jobs in every county in the state. We moved 35,000 people on welfare to work. We changed our prison system to where we now have the lowest recidivism rate in the country. We passed voter ID. We passed tort reform. We did pension reform. We paid down our debt. We cut taxes. We made sure that people were proud again. We did E-Verify in the first 6 months, not 5 years like Ron. So don't go and pick on school choice and say that that's leadership. Okay. When I got to the UN, we cut $1 billion off the top, and we took the
You didn't do that. It was all Trump.
Respected again at the UN. I know what leadership is.
We're moving on to a topic, governors, that both of you have made central to your campaigns, and that is China. Governor Haley, American farmers were hurt by former President Trump's trade war with China. As a result, his administration paid out $28 billion in subsidies to farmers. You have vowed to be even tougher than Donald Trump on China. If your trade policies also end up hurting America's farmers, are you prepared to cut a check just like he did?
Well, that's why Trump should be here on this debate stage. He should have to defend it. So first of all, I've said China is our #1 national security threat. I fought them every single day at the United Nations. I know what they're capable of. The first thing we have to do is we have to make sure we stop selling them any land and we take back the land they already purchased. We need to go to our universities and we say, you either take Chinese money or you take American money, but the days of taking both are over. We need to stop all of the technologies that are going to China. Biden approved 70% of them. Trump approved even more than that. We have to tell them we're going to end all normal trade relations with them until they stop murdering Americans with fentanyl. And we need to make sure we build up our military. But the biggest thing, I was very attached to China in terms of trade. And the one thing we'll do is we won't wait for the China to pull the rug out from under Iowans.
Thank you.
What we'll do is instead we will move that trade to where we have friends. We will go and build partnerships. India, Japan, South Korea, Philippines, Australia, Israel. We will go and move that trade over. Right now, you can ask our farmers, when they go and they buy from China, China orders, cancels the order, then goes and tries to buy it cheap. That's what China does. Our farmers deserve better than that. We will get them trade deals. When I was governor in South Carolina, we sold and we exported everything we were making in South Carolina. When I'm president, we will sell and export everything that's being made in Iowa to those that are our friends, not our enemies.
Thank you. Governor DeSantis, your response?
The way you deal with China is threefold. One, we need more hard power in the Indo-Pacific. I'm a Navy guy. We need more sea power. We're going to build that up. And we're going to have a strategy to deny their ability to invade Taiwan or to get beyond the first island chain. On the current course, they're going to take advantage of Biden.
Trump.
And we're going to rue the day when that happens. Second, we got to decouple our economy, particularly things that are nationally significant to our national survival. And you got to be methodical, strategic about it. There's a lot of moving parts there, but we're going to do that. Nikki Haley's not going to be able to do that because a lot of her supporters make a lot of money in China. And so she's going to talk tough. but she'll cave on that. And then also with here in the United States, she's saying they shouldn't be buying land and be in the universities. When she was governor of South Carolina, the state gave China land.
That was in the 1900s.
And they were in the universities. As governor in Florida, I banned China from buying land.
When was she governor?
Them out of our universities. That's what you want to do.
In 2008?
DeSantisLies.com. He has an economic development arm. You had an office
She's
in
desperately
Hong Kong.
trying
On
to
the
finish
website,
second
it said
to Trump.
that Florida is a great place to
DeSantis
do
lies.
business.
How many times did you say that stupid site?
Business. And then when we called you out on it, you had the website scrubbed. So we know that that's the case. What I will tell you is we need to focus on what we're going to do to become less dependent on China. And we need to make sure that we look at it through a national security lens. When we had COVID, everybody told you to wear a mask. It was made in China. They told you to take a COVID test. You turned it over. It was made in China. If you go down the drugstore aisle, all those medicines are made in China. We need to make sure we're getting medicines made here, or we need to get it from our friends so that we're not in any way threatened.
But
I'll tell you, Ron continues to sit there and talk about China. He has done expansions in China. His biggest donor that is backed by China gave them $340,000. So don't go and talk about donors and money. Go to DeSantisLies.com and we'll tell you all about it.
Governor DeSantis, I know your record hurts.
My record doesn't hurt. Economic power.
You're talking the opposite of what you did. You were made a big effort to bring them into the state. They had land near a military base. You were in front of the Chinese flag saying you work for them. You wrote a love letter to the ambassador. That's well documented. You were the #1 Republican governor in the country. And even people that on the media who are hostile to me, they say they can't find one instance of me as governor recruiting a Chinese company because I haven't done it. It's not been part of that. And the Enterprise Florida, we actually eliminated. So here's the thing, though.
I put a new
backed
poll
by
up.
companies like BlackRock. She's backed by major companies on Wall Street. They make a lot of money in China. There's a reason why
people seem to be
you're in the
really
mess
big
you are
also.
in terms of trying to deal with the inflation and everything, because the elites in this country have sold out the middle of the country for China. She is part of that
That I
now,
would not
and
take.
she's not going to stand
Governor
up for you.
DeSantis, I want to ask about something that you mentioned you've been talking a lot about on the campaign trail, which is decoupling the U.S. economy with China's. China is a top supplier of goods to the United States. The U.S. sells more than $150 billion of goods to China every year. Is it really possible to sever economic ties without inflicting major pain on American business and American consumers?
Sure it is. And it's something that you got to be strategic. You got to be methodical about. You got to focus on the things that are of national significance. For example, I don't think it's a good idea that the pharmaceuticals come from there. Things for our military weaponry. All these important things that if we got into a worldwide conflict, we're going to ask China, who may be on the other side of that, to continue doing that. So you got to be smart about it. You got to recognize that you're going to have to do some incentives here in this country, tax incentives, regulatory incentives. But I want to make things here again. You know, I look around the country, there's parts of Iowa that have been hollowed out, particularly in the eastern part. And I've talked to folks and seen what that did for the community. We were sold a bill of goods by a lot of elites in this country that somehow putting China in the WTO and granting a most favored nation status was going to lead to our manufacturing exporting a bunch of stuff there. Instead, they've gobbled up so much more manufacturing. I don't think you can be a first-rate power unless you have a very strong industrial base. So we're going to do that here. We're going to work on workforce education. You know, not everyone needs to do a 4-year brick and ivy university. That's not the best way or only way for people to succeed.
You all want Vivek.
We're going to do skilled trades. We're going to do vocational. We've done that in Florida. It's going to be a really, really big thing. But I just think the middle of the country has to have those good paying jobs. And we can't put the interests of some of the people on Wall Street over the interests of Americans on Main Street.
Let's move on to Social Security. Let's move on to Social Security. According to the Social Security Administration, Social Security will be
in this country. So that avoids any kind of mandating or anything like that as a basic first step, just signifying we're measuring something because it's worth measuring. Carbon emissions, not worth measuring. Physical fitness in young people, worth measuring, right? And so the things that you actually measure are the things that actually
those of you who voted to stay here,
we used to have the presidential fitness test. It was actually under, I think it was President Obama, and it might have been a little bit of a pet project of Michelle Obama for whatever reason, to eliminate the presidential fitness test. That's not what it sounds like in the context of me saying it, of the U.S. president, though we could determine I think it doesn't hurt for a president to disclose how many push-ups and pull-ups they could do too. It doesn't hurt. But that's not what I'm talking about. It refers to the presidential fitness test in junior high school. That refers to a number of attributes of how you're able to perform on basic parameters of physical fitness that allows us to hold our system accountable and teachers accountable and schools accountable for how well we're doing on that metric, just as well as how well or these days how poorly we're doing on the metrics of math or reading proficiency. So I think that measuring it alone and making that a norm in this country would be
weird that he's sitting right next to Klaus Schwab.
Cost-enhancing, non-liberty infringing way of actually doing what I think is good and important for our country. And oddly enough, I don't think it's that odd, actually. That's going to have a palpable impact for the better on the mental health epidemic in this country. Actually, a lot of young kids are going to be mentally and psychologically a lot better off if we actually start just measuring and aspiring towards improved levels of physical fitness as well. I think most of us know that intuitively. It's definitely true from a data perspective as well. So that'd be my answer to your question. And I do think I've already been talking about it. People have asked me, why is this guy running for president? What does this have to do with it? Well, what it has to do with it is it still relates to that root cause and that loss of purpose in our country. And I do think that measuring physical fitness is strictly a good step for our youth and including integrated into our schools and standardized testing.
You want me to do a replay,
Thank you,
Vivek? I am deep into it.
What's
Ryan?
Ryan?
Hey, Ryan.
You know what?
So I followed your campaign since basically the beginning, and I love your message. I think you could fix this country. We've seen what they've done going after Donald Trump. Indictments, even trying to remove him from the ballot in certain states. My question is, how do I vote for Vivek Ramaswamy without sending the message that I am okay with what they are doing to Donald Trump?
Great question.
I think your question weighs on the minds of a lot of people.
That's what I keep saying.
What I saw in many of the rooms I was in was a sense of struggle with that question of loyalty. And I think our loyalty, my loyalty, and I know Donald Trump's loyalty and the loyalty of the people participating in this caucus process is to this country. So the question is what's right for the country. Let's just agree with that. Whoever you're going to vote for, that's what matters here. Not loyalty to me, not loyalty to Trump. It's loyalty to the United States of America. I think if you want to, I'm going to be blunt about this. I think if you want to save Trump and save this country, a vote for me is actually the way to go. What they're doing to Donald Trump is wrong. I have stood up against it at every step of this process to the point of derision, to the point of people have had all kinds of conspiracy theories about me, but one of them, and more popular ones, is there's some kind of Trump plant, that Trump and I had some kind of deal early on in this campaign to somehow eliminate Ron DeSantis, as though this was a worthy goal for a guy who's got other things to do in life than to focus on eliminating Ron DeSantis from contention. No, that was ridiculous. But I'm saying that I've been so strongly supportive of Donald Trump in the face of these prosecutions that even many people circulated nonsense like this. I've stood up against, I went to the Miami courthouse, I've stood up against these persecutions. For God's sake, I have actually written a FOIA demand and submitted it, Freedom of Information Act request, to know what Biden told Jack Smith, what Merrick Garland told Jack Smith, followed through on that, taken legal steps, and I hope we get accountability. I think that I wasn't planning on announcing this tonight, but might as well just say it. I think tomorrow morning, if not by noon, by tomorrow morning in the next 48 hours, I am submitting an amicus brief to the Supreme Court, arguing for why they need to overturn Colorado's disastrous decision to try to keep Donald Trump off the ballot, because it's the right thing to do for this country. And as somebody who's been trained in the law, I feel like a sense of obligation to do that. If somebody who understands the Constitution, it's my belief that every other Republican, myself included, needs to withdraw from any ballot that forcibly withdraws Donald Trump from the primary ballot, because that's how you actually stop the brazen election interference in our own primary. If every other Republican nullifies Maine, then it has no impact. So that's the length to which I've gone. And so people know this about me when I'm saying this. At this point, it is my firm conviction that this system, which has ratcheted up the threat level one by one to eliminating Donald Trump from the ballot, will stop at nothing. I'm increasingly certain will stop at nothing to keep this man away from the White House. So I think the best way to literally save Trump is to at least have arguably somebody the system might actually, even some elements of it, prefer less than Donald Trump for what I'm bringing to Washington, D.C. And I think that's also what
he's trying to walk a line here.
I think they duped him. at many steps. They told him you can't fire those civil service bureaucrats because of so-called civil service protections. Read the law. Those civil service protections do not apply to mass firings. Mass firings are what I'm bringing to the DC bureaucracy. So I will honor the man, and I have, and I think it's the right thing to do, and I will do it as the next president because he kept us out of foreign wars that didn't advance our interests, and he grew this economy. Those are no two small accomplishments. But our America First agenda does not belong to Donald Trump, just as it doesn't belong to me or anybody else up here. It belongs to you, to us, to we the people of this country. And we owe it to this country to make sure that movement does not end with Donald Trump, which is what the system has set up to do. I believe we're being led into a trap right now, and it pains me to watch it. So I'm asking you to do the right thing for this country. If you want to support Donald Trump even, or what he represents, is actually more precise. The right way to do that, to see this through for the country, is a vote for me in this Iowa caucus on Monday. And I think there's an emotional component to this. I actually think we need to vote with our brains. There's times when you vote with your heart. There's times when you vote with your brain. Your heart can get you to the doorstep of why America First matters.
It's not about the
voting
heart.
With your brain
it's that my brain
asking,
says I'm
are you
worried
going
about
to
the
look
message
back?
I'm
Here's the
sending.
thought experiment that I'd like for every voter in this state to go through. And I think a lot of them are considering myself for Trump heading into Monday. Do you think you're going to look back a year from now and say, whatever, God forbid, happens this year, say we were shocked by what happened? I mean, last time it was a man-made pandemic and a tech-rigged process leading up to an election that we all know was absolutely an unfair election.
He's basically saying
that was last time.
They'll cheat harder to keep.
What do you think
Trump
they're going
out.
to do this time? Are you going to be shocked next January and say, oh, I was shocked that happened? Or are you going to say we should have seen that coming? And I think it's exactly going to play out. If it's not me in the nomination slot, it's going to play out exactly the way I laid out. It's going to be Trump in a two-horse race versus a puppet who they can control. One way or another, they're going to eliminate him. We're going to look back and say that should have been obvious, when in fact right now people are behaving as though it's not. And we're going to regret the result. And I don't think there's a good chance. I don't think we have a country left, not the same country that we know and love. And so we owe it to this country and to our founding fathers to make sure the 250-year experiment does not end this year and that we have yet another 250 years and then some left to go. That's why I'm asking you to vote for me. If you want to save Trump and save this country, vote for me. And I hope that gets you
He's
to the
basically
place where
saying
you make the right decision for this country.
Thank you, Trump wins the primary.
I think we have enough time for two more. Yeah.
I want
two more questions.
Interesting thought. Because we all know the Democrats are going to try cheating.
Good name. It's a great name.
But the point is,
hi, my name's
it's
Tim,
probably
and
easier for
I
them
have
to
a
gin up
question about
cheating
civic duty
against
voting.
Trump than it would be against
I'm trying
anyone
to get my
else.
friend to get on the Vivek train, but he likes a lot of the most
That's
of your
his
things
point.
except for civic duty voting, and so I have his concerns. He just doesn't think it has a point to it. Young adults voting, there's no other way to get young Americans to vote besides making it harder. The test will only hurt the Americans who don't have access to good education or resources. So poorer communities is what he said. Also, you're an adult at 18. You can be tried by court. You can go into the workforce and be a part of the community. You should be allowed to vote without taking a test like an American citizen is what his concerns are.
Cool. So what I would tell your friend is, first of all, I would say this in a friendly way, relax, in the sense that this anything touching this would require a constitutional amendment. But why don't we talk about forgetting the plumbing of how we accomplish it? Let's at least see if we agree on the spirit of it, which is that in order to be a full citizen of a country, and citizenship is not about what you get. It's actually about what you give. Women didn't have citizenship and didn't have voting rights in this country. People think it means, what do you get? You get the right to vote? No, women were citizens all along, didn't have the right to vote. So if you actually trace our history, what's the origin of citizenship? Citizenship is about allegiance. It's about duty. It's actually why I don't believe that dual citizenship is a coherent concept.
I think he's better without
It's all about, or about any country. It's about allegiance. It's about, and with allegiance comes a duty. So with that said, the basic point I was making is, what's your basic duty at least we should expect of someone to a country? Some people will make cases for mandatory military service. I don't. But I think the basic table stakes of your duty to this country should be to know the bare minimums about this country and the Constitution and our history. It's mainly just the Constitution and the way the government works. And we know that that's an intuition we already track because If you're an immigrant to this country, we say you can't vote. You can have all kinds of other benefits. We give all kinds of benefits to illegal immigrants to this country. There's all kinds of things we do. But at least when things have worked the way they're supposed to, you can't vote in this country until you become a naturalized citizen, which requires you to pass a basic civics test. And so if we require that of a legal immigrant to this country before they cast a ballot at the ballot box,
why would we not have a similar?
I think it's reasonable for every high school senior who graduates from high school to at least know the bare minimums about the country that every immigrant has to know as a condition for becoming a voting citizen of this country before the age of 25. I think it's a reasonable thing to ask. Now, if you've had life experience as an adult, I'm willing to drop it. If you say that you've served in a military or first responder role, great. That's a different way of having allegiance or service to a country. But the bare minimums, so nobody has to take a civics test there, but the bare minimums are to say that you have some knowledge of the country of which you're a citizen. I was here in Iowa, and so this actually generated a lot of controversy. My campaign staff hated me for rolling out this idea because it didn't poll well. I said I'm going to study. They said, "Well, at least can we poll it?" I said, "Yeah, I'd love to see the data." It did not poll well. I came back and I still rolled it out in the speech where I was planning to because I think it's the right thing for the country. So I'm aware that it has not been a friend to my vote gathering process in this campaign. But I think people have come around to it, actually, over the course of the year. Some of my other positions have had the benefit of this too, my position on Ukraine or otherwise. But in this one, it so happens, I think people have come around to it. A 10-year-old girl in Iowa, her name is Lena, she came to one of my events, having heard about this controversy. She heard me take a beating from it from mostly on the left. They claimed it was Jim Crow or something like this. Everything's Jim Crow. If you're a 10-year-old and somebody says Jim Crow, I think you might think it like refers to air. It permeates and it's everywhere. But anyway, she heard a lot of this criticism and she printed out the 100-question civics test. Most adults in the United States would fail it if they took it right now. 60% is a passing score. She's 10 years old. She comes out with a printout with a handwritten note showing me and telling me that she got 100%, 100 out of 100 at the age of 10. So I don't think this is something that results in some socioeconomic struggle. If this 10-year-old girl in Iowa can know the first thing, I mean, questions like, how many branches of government are there? What branch of government does the U.S. president lead? I don't think it's too much to ask an 18-year-old to know what branch of government the U.S. president leads before they show up at the ballot box to cast a vote for the U.S. president. I think that's a reasonable thing to ask of a country. And I think that's what it means to be a citizen.
Ask of a voter.
So tell your friend to look at the spirit of that and don't worry about the plumbing so much. Thank you.
What's your name?
Hi, I'm Brittany. Big fan of Timcast, big fan of Candace. Hello.
Hi.
Okay, so Vivek, thank you so much for being here. I know the weather is not ideal right now, but thank you for being here. So your slogan has been truth, and it's all over this room. Many Americans over the years have felt lied to by our government and that they have pulled the wool over our eyes with so many occurrences in history, especially in the last 4 years. Recently, you have been speaking what recently happened with January 6th, and you're constantly be getting attacked. So thank you for speaking the truth on that.
Thank you.
There have been so many whistleblowers, such as Snowden, to expose the truth to the American people about what is going on behind closed doors. My question to you is, do you have it on your radar to grant pardons to those who told the truth to the American people, and also to release documents that would uncover a lot of unknowns to the American people, or to provide protections to future whistleblowers?
Yes, yes, and yes is the answers to your questions. I mean, I think that it's a returns our pardon be a clemency, but I think that if you swear an oath to the Constitution, your job is to keep it. And so you cannot systematically participate in the violation of those constitutional freedoms and constitutional rights without exposing that to the public. And I think we, the people, deserve a government that just tells the people the truth again. Not just when it's easy, but when it's hard. Sometimes it's ugly. That's when we need it the most. And I think we've been systematically lied to. You could just go to the last 8 years. Trump-Russia collusion hoax. Made up. COVID origin. Couldn't say that it came from a lab in China when it was obvious that it likely came from a lab in China now that we know that it did. How our money is being spent in Ukraine right now. The truth about what happened on January 6th. The truth about the Nashville transgender shooter manifesto. So we actually went down to Nashville, Candace and I did an event there together, calling on the local police or the FBI, either one, to just release that manifesto. And how we were actually lied to, even in that community. They said there's a lot in there that it's not what you think it is, but it could be dangerous to release. Then it gets released, and we see it was just actually a race-baiting, psychologically challenged person. A government that has systematically lied to its people. The reason people don't trust the government is that the government doesn't trust the people. Trust is a two-way relationship, actually.
Vivek.
And so I think the two ways we rebuild trust in this country. We had the event last night. Did you? Yeah, you were all the way. You were there for the press gaggle afterwards. That was a fun press gaggle we had last night. People should watch that one. It was the longest one I've done in a long time. We do the events and the press will come up afterwards. It's about 35 minutes. I think we want to rebuild trust in this country. If two things happen,
I'm not aware of
I think we have taken a quantum leap forward. We're back on track as a country. They're easy to do. The president of the United States tells the American people what we know about the subjects where the government has lied to the people. UAPs, tell us the truth. What happened on January 6th? Just tell us the truth. What was Saudi Arabia's role in 9/11? We know they lied to us. Just tell us the truth. Just go straight down the list. What was or wasn't known about the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq? Just tell us the truth. How many times as a government official, we saw the Twitter files, anytime a government official has pressured a private actor or a company or a bank or a tech company to do something the government couldn't do directly, just publish it as a first step. Tell us the truth. Was our taxpayer money used to fund the gain-of-function research that resulted in the origin of the COVID-19 pandemic? That's the first thing that it's up to a U.S. president to do from the standpoint of the government. And then if just one person in the media, just one, I don't need NBC and ABC and CBS and CNN and everybody else doing it at the same time, just one of them.
Diggers.
Look their audience in the eye and tell them when it came to the Hunter Biden laptop story that was suppressed on the eve of the last election, when it came to the Trump-Russia collusion hoax, when it came to the origin of COVID-19, when it came to the truth of the totality, at least even, of what happened on January 6th, or the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping plot, or whatever. We didn't tell you the whole truth. We're sorry about it. Here's why we didn't. These are institutional failures. And here's why we're going to make sure that never happens again. And I know you're still not going to trust us tomorrow, but we hope to re-earn your trust by repeatedly telling you the truth transparently. And we regret what happened, and we fired the people who were accountable for hiding it from you. If you have a president who does that from the White House, and just one, not all of them, just one actor in the mainstream media who does that, looking their audience in the eye on a TV screen and telling them the same thing, we are well on our way to reuniting and reviving this country. If I'm your president, that's going to happen from the presidency. And I think there's probably at least one good, enterprising, smart person still left there in the mainstream media that could step up and do the same thing. And if those two things happen, I am confident that we don't have to be mired in this divisive decline that we're in, but that we still can be in our ascent. I believe that. And I'm going to do my part. And I hope those in the media who have failed have step up and do their part. And, all I'm going to ask is of the citizens of this country to do your part here in Iowa starting on Monday. And that's what gets us there. So thank you. I appreciate you asking the question.
Sometimes I think that it's more valuable to lie to the people. And it's actually better in that we're talking about like secret weapons programs. You mentioned UAPs. If we're working on like the atom bomb, they didn't want to come out and be like, by the way, Germany and everyone listening, we're building an atom bomb. They were like, are you building an atom bomb? No, we are not building an atom. So there's times that you want to blatantly lie and not say that the thing is not existent.
So I disagree about the distinction between secrecy versus lying. Are there certain state secrets they need to be state secrets? Yes. Systematically lying when asked about it, I think, is a different matter. And so I think that's a hard line to draw. But you and I would still agree that at a certain point, you have a government that still tells the truth to the people again. And I think we deserve to know the truth of all the way what happened what's the truth of what happened with JFK? I think we should know. I think the public should know. We've been non-transparent about it at every step of the way. People call me conspiracy theorist for asking the question. That's not the point. The point is the government just deserves to, at a certain point in time, tell the people the truth again. And I disagree with you even in the near term. In the short run, it could be a more convenient thing to do to lie to the people. But in the long run, I think the answer is always to actually stand for the truth. And if you get into the specifics, even of geopolitics, this relates to the historical neocon neoliberal view of strategic ambiguity, right? So non-transparency at home goes hand in glove with the foreign policy worldview of strategic ambiguity. It's a whole worldview that says you're going to actually be in a stronger position if you don't tell people what you're going to do. I actually view it the other way. I think that if we have clear red lines and actually say that you know what? We are nuclear equipped, and here's where we are. That's actually going to, if we tell a country that if you cross this red line, we're actually going to have major consequences to pay for it, that's more likely to actually avoid war than it is to actually engage in strategic ambiguity. And so it's just a totally different worldview from the traditional neoconservative neoliberal vision that I'm bringing, which is transparency at home, which actually translates to you don't need the national security charade if your whole foreign policy strategy was also grounded in truth. In actually saying that this is what we're okay with, and this is what we're affirmatively not okay with. And here are the conditions under which we will blow you to annihilation because we have to. And if you cross that red line, we follow through and do it. But the rest of the time, we're not going to pretend like that's a possibility either. And so it's a total alternative worldview all the way up and all the way down. But it is grounded in, yes, absolute truth and transparency. And so that's what I'm going to bring. And if you think that that's dangerous, if you think that that poses risks to the future of our republic, then I'm not your guy. I'm not your candidate. But if you believe with me that in the long run, this is the way to respect the founding ideals of this country and to lead a country that is stronger over the long run for relying on truth, both in our foreign policy and our domestic policy, then I don't think there's anybody in this race who comes close to being able to deliver that in the way that I will. So that's what I offer.
I want to thank Vivek for having us out and for everyone else here who's
having me.
Who's joined and has hung out with us. We've got a special members only segment, VIP. We're going to be hanging out at this private party, keeping the conversation going for a little bit while longer. So head over to timcast.com, click join us. And in a few minutes, we will have a live feed hanging out on the couch, talking a little bit more about what's going on behind the scenes. And I want to say thank you to everybody who showed up here physically, everybody who watched the show. You can follow the show at TimCastIRL everywhere. You can follow me personally at TimCast to make sure.
All right. So I guess I'm back to those two idiots. I almost don't. It's like I feel like it's painful. They're on a commercial break, so it's a good time to. There's a whole bunch of super chats that I wanted to get to, and I'm thinking about reviewing and watching earlier part of Vivek because people are saying stuff like this. Vivek said earlier that the establishment is holding up Nikki Haley and DeSantis. Biden's going to drop out, and Nikki Haley or DeSantis will take office. I don't know what that means. Take office. If Biden's dropping out, they'll support the system. I'm not sure what that means. I'm torn about doing it now versus watching the first 2 hours of that tomorrow. That's what I'm really torn about. But I am very curious about it. Also, Vivek made a great point toward the beginning about how Nikki is the new Democratic puppet, and it blew my mind. Worth a listen to. All right. So Snuggle Struggle said, loyalty to the U.S., the CCP has offices in every American Ivy League, hijacking our best and brightest. Once youths take money, are entrapped, swear fealty to the CCP, demands become sedition. We cannot trust them in power. I have a difficult time believing Vivek is a plant. I have a difficult time, if that's what you're referring to. I have a difficult time believing that. I didn't hear what he was saying. It was an interesting question. Someone basically raised the point that I've been saying over and over again. My hand is forced. I have to support Trump here. I have to. Because otherwise I'm sending a message. He sort of danced around that. And what he basically claimed was, he's like, look, whoever is on the ticket come next November, there's going to be games. But the level of gamesmanship that we should expect from the left, if it's Trump, they're going to pull out every stop imaginable. They're desperate to keep him out. And if and when we see that happen, we put him on the ticket and we see that happen, and then come next January, we're like, what the hell happened? Well, we know that it's not a matter of whether they will, it's just what methods they plan on using. And he's basically saying that Trump cannot win. And because of that, that's essentially what he was saying. And I agree with that in part and disagree with that in part. I don't think it's true that he cannot win. I think our eyes are a lot more open now. But I think that I do have to admit that I think it's easier to rally the leftist troops against Trump than anyone else, because it's already ingrained in the left that Trump is Adolf. So it's very easy sell. Hey, you got to pull out every stop possible and go around to these nursing homes and get every vote you can and basically bust your tail to make sure we don't have 4 more years of Trump. It's much tougher for them to do that with Vivek on the ticket. I think that's a fair point. I think that's probably true. But I also think that Trump brings out more of a vote than Vivek will. I think that the total vote tally is going to be higher if it's Trump. A lot more anti-GOP and a lot more GOP. You know what I'm saying? Like I think it's just he makes everything more intense. His presence on the ticket. So, but I don't think he was saying that Trump's going to end up in jail in Georgia. That's not how I understood what he was saying. And I still, if he does think that, I disagree with him. I don't think he's going to end up in jail. I think he's going to get the presidential immunity. That's what I think is going to happen. Ed says, I agree with you. Listen, Trump's answer, and this is a great point that I really wanted to touch on. If you heard Trump answer, and I think Vivek sounded better than I've heard him in a while, better than in the debates, because he sounds less like a car salesman when he's engaging and having a conversation. He sounds less like he just sounds like, and I think the whole look that he was giving off there was good too. I think that was good, where he was basically showing up not in a suit, but like much more approachable. I think that was a healthy look for him. But yeah, I agree with you. DeSantis and Haley are a joke. I mean, listen to these idiots.
You don't get any good doctors.
Thank you, Governor.
You're entitled for that.
Governor DeSantis mentioned mental health. Let's talk about that. There is a mental health crisis in this country. An estimated 58 million Americans suffer from some type of mental illness. Governor Haley, you say the mental health crisis is a, quote, cancer that no one has dealt with.
Don't start digging.
What do you think is causing the crisis, and what would you do to fix it?
Well, I think we saw it exacerbated by COVID. I mean, with the school lockdowns and everything else, we see young people now with more anxiety, stress, and depression than ever before. 1 in 3 people right now suffer from mental health issues. But if treated, they can live a perfectly normal life. The problem is we don't have enough mental health therapists.
No, the problem is our mental health sucks.
We don't have enough addiction centers. And if you happen to be lucky enough to get one of those 3, insurance doesn't cover it.
You're
we have
terrible.
got to start dealing with this because it's become a huge issue.
No,
and
idiots.
That's why we need to have more telehealth. So that
it's that the type of mental health we have is enabling rather than curing. You don't even know what the problem is, moron.
Can get the help that they need. But right now, we've got to get access to care. And that's, again, why I want to move those federal programs down to the state level, because states know they need more mental health support. They're not getting the dollars to do it. We don't need D.C. bureaucrats handling that. We need this on the ground so that we can get the mental health centers, get the therapists, and get the help that people need so that they can be healthy again.
Governor DeSantis, you said right here in Iowa this summer that closing mental health institutions, a policy supported by Ronald Reagan, was a mistake. As president, would you restore federal funding to those mental health institutions?
Yes, we need more people in institutionalized settings, unfortunately. But Governor Haley mentioned, I think correctly, the devastating mental health consequences for these school closures, a lot of things that happened during COVID. I never recalled seeing her out there fighting the fight. I was on the front lines on that. Governor Kim Reynolds was on the front lines on that. We fought back against the biomedical state. We were attacked by the media. We were attacked by the pharmaceutical companies. We were attacked by the left, attacked by Fauci. We stood and we helped people. And Iowa and Florida had the best schools opening in the entire pandemic because we led. That's what you want to do. Now, in terms of mental health, I run into veterans here in Iowa. And I think we have a significant problem with veterans, particularly the post 9/11 veterans. And we know the stats on suicide. It's really, really sad. And as a fellow veteran, as president, I have to put that issue on the front burner. We can't keep turning a blind eye to what's happening to our vets. It's not going to be done just through the VA. And it can't be done just by pumping people with pharmaceuticals. If a veteran has post-traumatic stress, you need more than just that. So we're going to use the VA to link veterans with resources that are throughout our country.
Listen to them compared to both Trump and Vivek.
We have an organization that trains service dogs to be able to be paired with veterans with post-traumatic stress. They understand the symptoms, they mitigate it, and you know what? The suicide rate is close to 0 as a result of that. We got to think bigger than these bureaucracies, and we've got to be there for our vets and their mental health.
Thank you, Governor.
I feel you on that, Ed.
Turning to the topic of climate, 2023 was was the hottest year ever recorded on Earth,
Oh,
and
let's look at
Americans are
climate
already
change.
feeling the impact. Just yesterday, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration reported that the U.S. experienced 28 weather and climate-related disasters that cost at least $1 billion
Let's hear what
last
these
year,
idiots say
another
about
record.
climate. I'm curious.
Governor DeSantis here in Florida, Governor DeSantis here in Iowa, massive flooding has left farmers underwater. In Florida, rising seas threaten coastal cities. You have taken action in your home state to mitigate the problems of rising seas. But as president, would you do anything to deal with the
I agree with you,
underlying
the games won't end.
cause,
The
which
question is how
scientists
easy it is to
agree
get people to come out to
requires
help you.
cutting carbon emissions?
It's not like it's one
So on
person.
day one as president, we take Biden's Green New Deal, we tear it up and we throw it in the trash can. It is bad for this country. We have to have reliable energy. And here's the thing, you know, they talk about, Joe Biden has said that global warming is worse than a nuclear war. And I'm just thinking to myself, well, gee, John Kerry hasn't given up his private jet. Obama hasn't given up his Martha's Vineyard seaside mansion. I haven't seen Biden do anything to hold China accountable except making sure that Hunter gets his money. So these guys talk out of one side of their mouth and then they behave in another way. And I think that's wrong. But I also think that those policies would devastate communities, particularly here in Iowa. I mean, for example, he wants to mandate electric vehicles. That's going to be more costly. I think the car companies would go bankrupt, but it's going to hurt liquid fuels, which is very, very important. You're going to end up having rolling blackouts if they kneecap reliable energy production in this country. Florida's had a massive decline in emissions. Wasn't because of a single mandate. It was because of innovation, because a lot of natural gas has replaced coal. We do have market-based solar, and it's a complement, but we cannot walk away from reliable energy. And I think about, here's what the left wants to do. They want to take away your freedom, and they want you to pay more.
I was watching on
We need you to pay less for energy, and we need to make sure people can innovate. We cannot have these mandates, and they'll be gone.
And come back to this in another like 15 minutes or so. I'll come back to this. I'm losing patience listening to these idiots. You suck, CNN. Okay. They went to a commercial break. All right. It's going to take me more than 20 seconds to answer this question, so I'll come back to that. Let me pull this up here. With the elected talk this week having trouble understanding how ballot only allowing voting for President of the United States and VP by ticket jives with the 12th Amendment, does New York group the VP as an also ran? In North Carolina, one can't register as a VP candidate. Let's talk this week. Oh, we got back.
Account. Those are the two countries we have to really go to if we care about the environment, that we go and make them be held accountable. The second thing is we'll roll back all of Biden's green subsidies.
How are you going to have China?
Because they're misplaced. Rather than putting anything towards innovation on what we can do on nuclear fusion and other things that reduce emissions, which there are things out there, to go and have everybody have to drive an electric car by 2035, that's not even smart. One, because, which by the way, Ron took Biden's stimulus money and did charging stations all throughout Florida. I wouldn't have taken the stimulus money. But what that does is basically we don't have the infrastructure. And I'm not just talking about charging stations. Electric vehicles are heavy. Our roads and bridges wouldn't be able to handle that if we did that because they're heavy in weight. And so we have to be smart about the way we do that. Not to mention 70% of the batteries in electric cars are made in China. So Biden gave this massive windfall to our #1 national security threat. If we're going to do it, innovate it, transition, and do it the right way, not in extremes.
Thank you. I want to turn to the issue of crime. The majority of Americans describe crime in the U.S. as either extremely or very serious. Recent data show crime rates falling, but some violent crime rates do remain high. Governor Haley, former President Trump, suggested that he might try to stop violent crime by deploying U.S. troops to Democratic-run states and cities, something he could potentially do under the Insurrection Act. Is that something that you would do as president?
What I would do is, first of all, defund sanctuary cities. It's hugely important that we do that. That's where we're seeing a lot of crime. But the second thing is, our law enforcement is demoralized right now, because if they go and they arrest someone for having a stolen gun, it's demoralizing when they go through all that effort, put their lives at risk, and then you turn around and let that criminal go the very next day. Prosecutors need to prosecute according to the law.
And how are you going to force that to happen?
When we bring law and order back to our cities, then that's when they'll be safe. You don't do it by defunding the police, and you don't do it by just praising the police. You do it by having their backs, making sure we passed the first body camera bill in the country in South Carolina to make sure that law enforcement felt like they could do their job without feeling threatened about them doing their job. But we have to have prosecutors prosecuting. We have to defund sanctuary cities. We have to get these stolen guns and drugs off the street. And the only way we can do that is when we empower law enforcement.
Governor
I
DeSantis.
just think, that
You're really
quote
listening
from
to her and you
President
buy any of her
Trump
crap.
is a little bit rich
understand
because he was
where your
president
brain's at.
during the worst
Okay.
rioting in the modern history of this country, the BLM riots in the summer of 2020. When I saw that happening in Minneapolis, in Florida,
What was he supposed to do?
We had state law enforcement.
You
deployed.
can't
We
just
said,
pull
"You're
in
not
the
burning down
National
our
Guard
cities in
if
this
they don't
state."
let
You know
you
what?
bring them
It
in.
didn't happen. He sat in the White House and tweeted
You're
law and
full of
order,
crap.
but he did nothing to ensure law and order.
You're full
As
of
your
crap.
president, I
You're
will
a big,
never
fat,
let our
stinking
cities
liar.
burn. You have every right.
Every time
to
he
stop
talks,
this runaway
I can
rioting as
bless.
president. In fact, you have a duty. Now, Nikki Haley and I
No,
have a
it's
disagreement
illegal
on the
for
BLM
sending the
stuff
National
too,
Guard unless it's
because
invited
she
in.
tweeted during this
You
period of
invited him
time
in, so that's why I
that
brought him
the
in
death
there.
of George Floyd should be, quote,
offered them
personal
everywhere.
and painful
You
for each and
disingenuous
every
piece of
American.
dog crap.
But people in Iowa had nothing to do with that, or Florida or South Carolina. She was virtue
now I wanna
signaling
check
to the
out
left. She was accepting the
DeSantisLies.com.
narrative, and she was trying to impress people who are never going to like us. I never bought into going after the police. We back the blue to the
Thank
hilt
you,
in the
Governor
state of Florida,
DeSantis.
and we have lower crime as a result of
Thank you, Governor Haley.
That was complete BS answer.
It's interesting that he did that. He put a tweet that was very similar, but let me tell
That's
you
not
why
true.
I did that. First of all, we had one of the worst two racial shootings. We had the shooting of Walter Scott, who was shot 7 times in the back by a dirty cop. We had a horrific shooting at a church where a white supremacist came in and killed 9 amazing souls. BLM, all of that, we never had to deal with riots. We never had to call in the National Guard, Ron, because when we had both of those shootings, we were able to pull people together.
I agree.
We didn't have riots, we had vigils. We didn't have protests, we had prayer. We brought people together. When I said that about George Floyd, when we turned around and had the worst shooting in a religious
I wanna come
place
back to
that
this.
we had seen in this country, not only did I pass the first body camera bill in the country and keep our state together, not only
Take the
did I
shovel
move
away.
to bring the Confederate
Ready for
flag
the
down,
snow.
we came together as a state
Thank you,
in
Governor.
prayer, and we had no division, no riots, no
Thank you.
anything. We didn't need the National
Thank
Guard
you, Governor.
because a leader knows how to bring out the best in
So
their people.
thank
to
you,
go
Governor. So
Good.
you have been sparring on the campaign trail for months. We've seen some vicious attack ads going back and forth, and tonight we have had a very lively debate. On a different note, Governor DeSantis, let me ask you, what do you admire about Governor Haley?
Look at that weird
Look,
smile.
I think that, at the United Nations, I did think that she spoke out strongly on some key issues, and I appreciated that. I also appreciate the state of South Carolina. My wife is a College of Charleston graduate. Her parents lived there for many, many years. And so it is a wonderful state. There's a lot of great people there. And I think to be able to have been governor there is a great achievement. And I really appreciate everyone.
I
I've gotten
agree
to
with
meet in
Barnes
South
on this
Carolina.
completely.
Governor
I'll
Haley,
explain
what do you
why
admire
shortly.
about Governor DeSantis?
I think he's been a good governor.
Okay. So we're going to squeeze in another quick break, and we'll be right back with more from the Republican debates here at Drake University.
All right. About this, one Nimrod in your chat disagreed that voters should have to pass a civics test, saying there could be differences of opinion. Please give your take on the whole civics test question. So, as someone pointed out over here, that Robert Barnes referred to it as a right, and a right has a gate. Like it's a that voting. I'll tell you right now. It's really very, very simple. It's very simple. It's not that you have a pulse and you're an American citizen that gives you all of a sudden a right to vote. And reaching a certain age doesn't mean that, oh, you reach a certain age, now you have sufficient maturity to exercise that right in a way that's actually mature or even beneficial to yourself. Because too many Americans literally are not like you who are watching a show like this. Too many Americans out there actually just will see like 2 clips here, 2 clips there, and have no idea what the hell they're voting for. How many people do we see that they'll stand outside somebody with a camera and they'll give quotes of something that someone said, and they'll be asked, was this said by Trump? Was this said by Biden? And they'll get it wrong over and over again because they're suckers for whatever 15-second clip they see from legacy media. So, yeah, should they at least be forced to pass the civics test so that they understand what the powers of the president are and what they are not? Look, are they going to be sufficiently knowledgeable that they'll realize that when DeSantis is lying to them and pretending that Trump is sitting in a White House and not doing anything to stop the summer of love in 2020 with the BLM riots, and that he didn't have any jurisdiction to do any more than offer, which is what he did to every place that they had these BLM riots? And that the reason that Ron DeSantis had the National Guard come in is because it was offered to Florida just like every other state. That's not Trump sitting on his butt. That's Trump being handcuffed by federalism and not being able to send in a federal police force into a local agency unless they're invited and accepted in. And there's good reason for that law, by the way, in general, because if they're not invited in, all of a sudden the locals have no idea what the hell these people are doing here. There's no collaboration between them, and people die. That's why they couldn't be at the White House, because it was being overseen by they couldn't be by the Capitol on January 6th because the whole D.C. area is being overseen by Muriel Bowser and the Capitol is being overseen by Nancy Pelosi. But he's sitting here lying to you. People should understand civics. They should understand that, hey, the president is the chief of the executive branch. He doesn't write laws. And if you can't figure that out, if you don't know that, if you can't be troubled to spend a half hour just learning how our country operates so you can get a 60 on one of these stupid tests that a 10-year-old can get 100 on. If you can't invest that level of effort, why the hell should your opinion about who should be running this country matter? What, because you have a pulse? Because your mother gave birth to you in this country? Seriously. Like let's just recognize that you simply need to actually engage your brain. And if you can't engage your brain if it's not worth it to you to engage your brain long enough to understand the very basic minimums about how our country operates, and you don't want to invest. I mean, look, he's offering up that you don't have to pass that test if you're a first responder. If you're a member of the military, you don't have to pass that test. But if you want to get that, if you want to have the right to vote before you turn 25, at the very least, you should know certain basic things. Maybe that encourages some young people, to actually spend a little bit of time of actually knowing what the understanding and appreciating the privileges and blessings they have in being an American. So yeah, a basic civics test of the level and nature that Vivek is talking about. Your 10-year-old should be able to pass it without much studying. That was what it was. That gate should have, that right should have gates. It should. I mean, the truth is, I don't look at vote. It's privileges that have gates. Rights, you have your freedom of speech. It's not, you don't have a gate on your freedom of speech. Your freedom of religion. The freedom to listen to this idiot.
That we can't go through 4 more years of chaos. And if it's Donald Trump, there will be 4 more years of chaos. And we can't be a country in disarray and a world on fire and go through 4 more years of chaos. And we can't go through another nail biter of an election. And if you look at the polls right now, going against Joe Biden, in every one of those head-to-head polls, Ron doesn't beat Joe Biden. Trump is head-to-head. On a good day, he might be up by 2 points. I defeat Biden by 17 points. That's bigger than the presidency. That's House, that's Senate, that's governorships, that's down to school board. That's a mandate to get our spending under control and get inflation down. That's a mandate to get our kids reading again and go back to the basics in education. That's a mandate to secure our borders with no more excuses. That's a mandate to bring law and order back to our country. And that's a mandate for a strong America that we can be proud of. We can do this. I know we can do this. If you will join with me in this movement, if you join with me in this fight, I promise you our best days are to come. God bless you.
Governor DeSantis.
Well, it's been great to visit all 99 counties here in Iowa. I've been able to meet so many friends and really learn about some of the best of America. Iowa's votes do not need to be corrected by any other state. You all know what you're doing, and we have an opportunity on Monday to really change the course of history. Donald Trump's running for his issues. Nikki Haley's running for her donors' issues. I'm running for your issues, your family's issues, and solely to turn this country around. I'm the only one running that's delivered on 100% of my promises, and I'm the only one running that has beaten the left time and time again, from the teachers' unions to Fauci to the Democratic Party. We need to run under the banner of bold colors that are putting the American people first. We can't run under a banner of pale pastels of the warmed over corporatism, the likes of which is practiced by Nikki Haley. Freedom is on the ballot. Decline is a choice. We have it within our power to fix this country and to turn it around. I am asking for your support.
Just notice now his
in the
hair
Iowa
looks like Eddie
caucus on
Munster.
Monday, January 15th. I'll be a president that
Never
you can
noticed
be
the Eddie
proud
Munster
of,
hairstyle
and I
he had
promise you
before.
this, I will get the job done, and I will not let you down. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Our thanks to Governor DeSantis and Governor Haley. Governor DeSantis and Governor Haley, thank you so much, both of you, for being here tonight. Thanks to our audience, to our host, Drake University.
Done with you. Okay. All right. What do you think it'll take for Vivek to drop out? If he gets slaughtered in on Super Tuesday. That's what I think. Joe, totally off topic, but who's Shmuley and why do I get dark vibes from him? He worries me with getting in with candidates. He's always had political aspirations. I think he just enjoys rubbing elbows. He's written a few books. He's pretty harmless. BS Trump was just the first. The games won't end. So this is what, and you're all saying to me because I said that they'll come harder after Trump. This is what I wanted to explain about that. I said they're going to cheat no matter who's on the ticket, and I understand whoever is on the ticket after Trump, whether it's this year or 4 years from now, is going to be labeled by the left as worse than Trump. We Trump times Trump. It's like the worst form of they're already labeling Vivek that way. The difference is that when these elections are manipulated by the left, when there's all the shenanigans in the games and all this other crap that's happening there, that's not one person or 10 person. It's thousands of people who are happy to step up and do whatever they can. And that army is in place, ready to go with respect to Trump, not with respect to the GOP, but they're charged up to go with respect to Trump. You need to recognize that. Now, if Vivek were to win, would they be charged up to go after Vivek, for a second go round? Yeah, probably. But the point is that army is much easier to put into motion. They don't need to motivate them. They're already motivated to do whatever they can to stop Trump because they've been listening to 7 years worth of lies about Trump. So yeah, they don't need any motivation. They just see Trump on the ticket and they're like, point me in a direction, tell me what you need from me and I'll do it for you. It's not the same with any other GOP candidate. Will they eventually be motivated that way after they hear years of crap about the next person to come along? Yeah, definitely true. They will, but not for this coming election. That's the point. At the same time, what Trump offers is that he will get probably 10% more votes from the GOP than any other candidate because so many people are coming out for him. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot more shenanigans if it's Trump, and there's going to be a lot more votes for the for Trump than Trump will get more votes than anyone else from the GOP. There's no other member of the GOP who will get as many votes as him because there are a lot of people excited to support him. He's earned that. He's earned that. There's a reason why he had more votes for the presidency than any other GOP than candidate in history. And doing that as an incumbent is not easy in the midst of a pandemic and a recession. And he's still got more votes than any other candidate in history. That's remarkable. It's a remarkable attestation to his success as a president. It really is. But that being said, while I agree with you, they will be told that Vivek is Adolf. It takes a while to sell that notion. It's not something you can just sell over 2, 3, 6 months. It takes a while to sell that. And it's already been sold. So the army for the left that is willing to engage in these shenanigans, who's going to go running out in some little stupid hick town to nursing homes to collect votes from semi-comatose patients and just sign their names for the Democratic candidate. They're much more easily motivated. You don't have to motivate them. They just see Trump on the ticket and they're motivated. They see anyone else, they're not going to be as motivated. That's just reality. But yeah, they'll definitely be lied about whoever it is. There's a reason Ron left for the Navy. For Congress officers supposed to be leaders, no people skills. P.S. He's a lawyer, not a sexy door kicker. I don't know who thought he was a sexy door kicker. I never heard anyone make that claim about him. Defended sanctuary cities with demoralized police requires troops for enforcement augmentation. I'm not sure what that was. 13 minutes ago. I'm not sure what that was about. We were taught civics in high school. Bring it back. Amen. Amen. Better answer on civics test. Voting is not a right, like speech or freedom to worship, etc. Higher bar makes more sense. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it should be looked at as a privilege. And much like driving is a privilege, you have to pass a driving test. I think it should be a privilege. People look at it as a right because we're a democracy, but you know better. You know we're a republic. It should be viewed as a privilege that can be taken away. Clearly, it's a privilege. Here's the evidence: felons can vote, can't take away their right to free speech, can't take away their right to freedom of religion. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a privilege. Kids don't have that right. A 14-year-old doesn't have that right. It's not an inherent right. Civics test just to start. If you're going to gate rights, why not make the bar bachelor's or doctorates? Anything the president wants. So I think you're saying that it's a bad road. It's a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope. And I've had conversations about this, and I'll tell you right now. First of all, as far as the bar being a bachelor or a doctorate, that's kind of, I think that people have a bachelor or a doctorate. I mean, my personal yardstick, that I'm not impressed by that at all. But I understand that I'm still in the minority in that position. But you can't say that because you're worried about a slippery slope that you should never take any steps. Like, that doesn't make any sense if you really think that through. By that logic, you should never make any changes because that new change is an implementation towards a slippery slope. It is, I mean, at least to start, I like the fact that Vivek said it's important to at least have a conversation of like where people can appreciate the value of their vote, which right now Americans do not appreciate the value of their vote. That's clear. Far too many Americans fail to appreciate the significance of their vote. So, of course, suburban moms loved her. Of course, suburban moms loved Nikki. Bunch of bitches. OMG, Ron is wearing eyeliner, heels, and makeup. Yeah, I know. Seriously, he's like he Don't get me started. He had eyeshadow on. If you looked at the color of his stuff, he looked weird. He looked weird. I drove past my local Target store, and a lady holding a little kid's hand had the hood up. I stopped and asked if she needed help. No habla. Welcome to America. Yes, they actually saw this. Freedom isn't messy unless you're in the military. U.S. voter. I defy all to share a dumber quote in history. Amazing. Wow. Yeah. Unbelievable. Eddie Munster's hair, Herman Munster's. That was my Herman Munster laugh. Defunded. Nikki dodged the troops question. They both sound like such classic canned politicians. We need a country that's going to stand up for you. It just sounds like so canned. We need people who are going to stand up for you, what you care about. It's like, just stop it. Just stop it. It's stupid. You have to pay for a driving test license. So I'm not saying you should charge for it. I'm not saying you should charge for it. I'm simply saying there's no harm in it. There's no harm in it. I'm torn about whether I want to go. It's 2 hours. The Vivek, if I want to watch the beginning of it. I'm torn about whether I want to watch it now or tomorrow, because I think there's a lot there that I want to see.
And I believe he's the one that can. He's going to need a lot of help, though. Can't do it by himself. The American people have got to help him.
That's right. Exactly. Thank you, Charles. I appreciate it. So what I'll say is I have an ask of everybody in here. This the most valuable currency right now between now and Monday night is time. Reach as many people as you can. Tell them they need to show up at 6:30. Warn them that it's going to be cold. But tell them we need them anyway. And if everybody across the state does what they need to do, we're amongst friends here.
This is the after party.
I think we're going to deliver a
Timcast is charging for.
This country
Vivek is streaming.
Coming in about 5 days. I promise you, we're going to stop at nothing. Apurva and I, she's doing her own full slate of events in southeastern Iowa tomorrow. We're stopping at nothing. I know you guys are here for the same reason. And let's get together in about 5 days, a little less than that, to celebrate what we accomplished. Go make it happen, guys. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you. We're going to do it. Thank you.
I can ask you guys a question. We have one more poll.
Let's do it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, good to see you.
I have one more poll for you guys. If I do a daytime stream tomorrow, if I do one, which I'm not promising I will, but if I do, day stream tomorrow. Because I assume that both of these are still going on. I assume they're still going on. Would you prefer Hunter Biden contempt? I have to check if it's still going on. These things, are they still going on? Let me check that out. Give me a second. So I'm not making a poll for nothing. Let's see what C-SPAN has. They'll show me. Senate session. No. Contempt of Congress resolution against Hunter Biden. That's one of them. Smith v. Arizona. What is that? Smith v. Arizona is a case on expert testimony in criminal trials and the Confrontation Clause of the Sixth Amendment. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. They have two different things. There's a House Oversight considering contempt of Congress, and then there's a House Judiciary Committee considering contempt of Congress, both against Hunter Biden. Wow. So I guess, and then there's the impeachment. Is this this was today. Was this today? I want. All right, I was boomerang. This was today. Mayorkas, Smith, Arizona, House Judiciary Committee. Tomorrow, live online tomorrow, Washington Journal Senate session. What's your Senate session here? Yeah, I don't care about Bureau of Labor Statistics. What's your House session tomorrow? Let's see what we got. Yeah, I don't care about this. So I guess they finished up those things. Oh, this is good. This. Let me see how long you are.
Mobile video app or online at cspan.org. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie.
Oh, Chris Christie leaving. Oh, this is a great way to spend the next half hour. Yeah, I plan on, barring any sort of calamitous type of thing, I plan on watching the first couple of hours of Vivek Town Hall meeting tomorrow. Not promising, because I don't know what's going to happen. You never know what world events may demand, a pivot that I have to cover that. But absent anything of that nature, or a guest coming on who I decide supersedes that. Absent that, I will do Vivek tomorrow, Town Hall. But for now, there's a 33 minutes of Chris Christie weeping away the end of his campaign. And to me, I think this will be funny. So this is his announcement that I assume this is his announcement that he's suspending his stupid run for.
Personal ambition is a necessary element for any political candidate. You got to get out of bed in the morning and be able to really believe in your heart that you have something to offer to folks.
And trust me, his heart is the size of an elephant's.
That's better and different. So I have no argument with people who are involved in politics being ambitious. You need to have it. But it can't be what governs your decision making. Ambition can't be what makes you decide how to do things.
This is basically a room full of people who hate Trump.
As a public figure. It could just be the fuel that gets you out of bed, that gets you in front of a room like this, that gets you on the phone raising money, that gets you working for people who you believe in, and gets you working for yourself. I made a political decision 8 years ago when I dropped out of the race in 2016.
Oh, I thought he meant when he engaged in Bridgegate and basically closed down the bridges, but I guess it was a different one.
Looked at the polls, and I decided that Donald Trump was going to be the nominee, and that since I'd known him for 15 years, that I could make him a better candidate, and if he won, maybe a better president. I knew his flaws, but I also knew he was going to win the nomination. So I decided that I would get behind him and support him.
So basically, I don't believe in him, but I lied and pretended that I did for my own political power.
Let the ambition get ahead and in control of the decision making.
Oh.
And after I figured
pleading
that
mea
out,
culpa that I
promised
supported Trump.
myself and I promised my wife that I would never, ever do that again.
And a schmuck is one thing he hasn't seen in the last 40 years of his life.
Who have been in this race, who have put their own personal ambition ahead of what's right, they will ultimately have to answer the same questions that I had to answer after my decision in 2016. Those questions don't ever leave.
Thank you, brother. Good night.
They're really stubborn.
Check out last night on the following program.
And so I know how I'm answering those questions. I've never believed that Donald Trump was a foregone conclusion as our nominee in this race.
Well, now you should.
And I knew that the case had to be made against him. Now, there are people in our party who are resigned to the fact that he was going to be the nominee, Resigned with the fact
now
that
he's resigned.
the case didn't even need to be made because it would be a waste of time.
No, because it was stupidity.
On the sidelines. And all they did was voice their opposition in private.
Oh, shut up.
Behind closed doors, quietly.
You blowhard.
So no one could hear. And that's not leadership, everybody.
You're not
That's
leadership
cowardice.
either. You are a coward.
It's cowardice and it's hypocrisy.
Yeah, the Long Hours
As
is
a
Tim Pool's
party,
show with Vivek was good tonight. For
We
anyone
need
curious,
to be willing to
Yeah, I
take
agree
the
with you, it was.
responsibility for the part we've played in getting here. Our country is angry. It's divided. It's accomplishing
It's your
little,
fault. You're an enabler
and it is
of
leading
those
our
idiots on the
citizens
left.
to be exhausted.
You're an enabler. You encourage
And you
them.
just look at what's happening just
You're no different from
last
Liz
few
Cheney
days.
or Adam Kinzinger. You're no different. You're the same loser.
Good people who got into politics, I believe, for the right reasons. People like Senator John Barrasso, people like Congressman Tom Emmer.
Oh, Jesus.
Stand up and endorse Donald Trump.
The biggest neocons.
Trump. They know better.
Oh,
I know they know better.
Shut up. See, it's a room
People
full
who
of Trump
continue
haters.
to deny the results of the 2020 election.
Mm-hmm.
People in leadership
With a
in the
brain.
House who go on TV and say that the people who attacked the Capitol on January 6th are hostages. I'll tell you who hostages are.
Beached whale.
The Israelis who are still being hidden in tunnels in Gaza against their will, out of no fault of their own. These people speak louder for the folks who attacked our Capitol on January 6th than they are willing to stand up and speak for the people of Israel who are in tunnels in Gaza.
What are you
That's not
talking about?
leadership.
What are you
That's
talking
ambition and cowardice, which has outstripped their otherwise good judgment. We want to change this party, and if we want to change this country, it's hard work. It's not easy.
Getting rid of
From
the
the
swamp
moment I
is
got
never
into
easy.
the race, the decision that I made was really simple.
I'm wondering if this swamp creature actually has to stick his head out of the water or he's learned to actually breathe underwater.
I would rather lose by telling the truth than lie in order to win. And I feel no differently today.
You wouldn't get much left to eat. I wonder what his dinner fund must be like $800.
Because this is a fight for the soul of our party and the soul of our country. Why have we resisted the calls to drop out of this race? Because unlike some of the other candidates, we're fighting for something bigger than ourselves.
There's nothing bigger than you. There's nothing bigger than you that you're fighting for.
We're fighting for something bigger than self-interest. We're fighting for something big.
I take it back. His self-interest is somehow even bigger than him. I didn't even think of his self-interest. I forgot all about his self-interest. His self-interest is bigger than him.
Bigger than the next title. I've got plenty of titles. Enough titles to last me the rest of my life.
Nathan, hot dog eating contests don't count.
U.S. attorney, governor, husband, father, son,
Jackass,
brother. I had enough titles to last me for the rest of my life.
Liar,
We're fighting for
corrupt,
something bigger.
A lot of titles.
It's something that conventional wisdom thinkers just can't possibly understand. And
Penis
so
envy.
they've been saying for weeks
Lots of
and weeks
titles.
and weeks, because some polls, that I should drop out of the race, that I should get out.
I told you this was going to be good. Come on, I'm the perfect podcaster to watch this with.
For that reason, the smallness of the campaigns, who spend more.
He's all about size, this dude.
More time arguing and worrying about who should get out of the race than they have spent going after the front runner. They spend all their time saying, oh, Christie should get out.
That's what this is.
Scott should get out. Pence should get out. Hutchinson should get out. Burgum should get out. They and their donors have a different target every day.
And we just started a few minutes ago watching his concession.
To minimize the attention to their own campaign. How their own campaign is a campaign that doesn't play to win. It's a campaign.
He played to win. He played to win a solid like 1.2% of the GOP.
That plays to not offend. The problems in our country.
That worked for you real well.
The divisions and influx at our border. The problems with our enormous debt.
Enormous.
The failures.
Everything's about enormous, huge.
Of our education system.
It's like. Oh my gosh, everything is like crater sized.
All of those things and much more will not be solved by people.
He looked solid
who
tonight.
Are too afraid to talk about what the real problems are.
Really solid.
If we ever have a hope of restoring this party to be a governing party of principles.
Okay, just for those of you who joined late, I know it says on my thumbnail. I know what it says on my thumbnail, okay? My chat took over. And demanded, held me hostage. They held me hostage and like I was literally held hostage by them. They were yelling at me, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking around and I'm like, oh my gosh, they like basically threw me in a tunnel and they said, you're going to be watching the Trump Town Hall. And I was like, no, I have a thumbnail. I've got like my description and everything. Everyone knows I'm supposed to be watching the debate. And they're all yelling at me. They start sending me super chats saying, throw a poll up, you schmuck. And so I threw a poll up. And when you know what happened when I threw the poll up? When I threw the poll up, basically it came out and they're like, I'm stuck in a tunnel until I switch over to Trump. I said, I'm not even, it can't be like a 55-45. I need to get at least 60% if I'm going to switch. 75% came in. 75% came in. And they were like, we're leaving Joe in a tunnel until such time as he switches us over. So I switched over to the Trump Town Hall for like the last half hour of it. And then I came back to the whining and bickering between Haley and DeSantis. And it was the same. It was like getting such a headache listening to them. And then I was like, you guys want me to switch over to the Vivek Town Hall? So I switched over the last half hour of that. And I watched that. So yeah, I've been a little bit all over the map tonight. It's not my fault. Yeah, you call you diggers. Now you understand. Now you all understand. It gives new meaning to the term diggers. Anyway, so I'm well aware.
Have to be willing to do the hard work and take some of the heat that comes with it. We have candidates in this race who have run away from forums where they were afraid they were going to be booed.
Oh my gosh. Your pup killed a squirrel? Are you kidding me? That's so not right. That's definitely not part of your membership in the following. That's for sure. I don't want to hear about it. Who can tell? Who can tell?
I run into the forums where
you don't run anywhere. Please. You need a golf cart to get from your living room to your bedroom. I run into the forums. What the hell? Where the hell? When's the last time you went running anywhere? Seriously. I was very flexible tonight. Christie is disliked by all. Why? He's a mook. Also because he's like basically power hungry, lying, conniving schmuck who is enabling the left and has frothing TDS.
I know I'm going to be booed because being booed for telling the truth is a badge of honor.
Oh, shut up.
I'm proud.
When's the last time you told the truth?
Of every
last time he told the truth is when he was jogging. That's the last time he told the truth.
Thing we've said and done so far. And I'm proud of all the people who have supported us and are willing to do what needs to be done to restore the soul of our country. See, because in the end, all those issues that we've talked about at all the town halls.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. What tunnels?
They're all really important.
Tunnels.
But they're no more important than the most important issue.
You mean like
and that is the
D
character of the candidate. You don't know what's going to come across the next president's desk. You think you can predict it, but you can't. No one asked George W. Bush or Al Gore what they would do if 4 airliners were hijacked and flown into symbols of American power and killing thousands of Americans. No one asked them that in New Hampshire in 2000. But I was glad we had a man of character sitting behind the desk in the Oval Office when that attack came.
A man who would lie to us and tell us that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq.
Because I knew George Bush would do everything he needed to do
to lie to
protect this country and its people and put them first, not himself first.
And I want to be clear about this. I've said it once or twice before, and I'll say it till my dying day. I did appreciate the way he stood on ground zero a couple days after 9/11 and gave a genuinely inspirational talk at a time that America needed it in ways that I can't begin to describe to those of you who are too young to remember it. Okay, it was incredibly inspirational. As a New Yorker, as someone living in New York my entire life, you know, it was palpable, and he did raise our spirits. And everything he did after that was crap, and everything he did before that was nonsense. So, and I'm not just talking about lying to us to get us into Iraq. I'm talking about the crap that he did with spending billions of dollars in trying to develop corn oil. I mean, everything. It was just a disaster. 8 years of disaster, which basically led to us having Barack Obama.
Imagine just for a moment if 9/11 had happened with Donald Trump behind the desk.
Never would have happened with him behind the desk. That's the point. Nothing like that did happen.
The first thing he would have done was run to the bunker to protect himself.
That's exactly what Bush did in that situation, which is the wise move to do. Schmuck.
He would have put himself first before this country.
And this is obviously Mr. Selfish, the guy who literally is. There are nations in Africa that are starving because of the food this man's ingested, and he's talking about someone else being selfish.
Anyone who is unwilling to say that he is unfit to be president of the United States is unfit themselves.
I'm kind of surprised he's dropping out of the race, because everything I've seen from this man, I assume that he's a glutton for punishment. Sorry, I'm not going to stop with the weight jokes on this guy.
To be president of the United States. Campaigns are run to win. That's why we do them. I see the chairman here in New Hampshire. He knows we run campaigns to win. My goal has never been to be just a voice against the hate and the division and the selfishness of what our party has become.
What? Huh? Jewish tunnel NY? I don't know what that means. You're trying to be weird now. You're just making this stuff up.
Under Donald Trump. It's also been to win the nomination and defeat Joe Biden and restore our party and our country to a new place of hope and optimism in this country. I've always said that if there came a point in time in this race where I couldn't see a path to accomplishing that goal,
or my shoes,
that I would get out. And it's clear to me tonight that there isn't a path for me to win the nomination, which is why I'm suspending my campaign tonight for President of the United States.
I'll come back to that.
I know.
I'll come back to that.
And I can see it from some of the faces here that I'm disappointing some people by doing this.
No, you're not disappointing anyone.
People who believe in our message and believe in what we've been doing. I also know
crazy TDS Democrats who put on a red shirt. Those people who put on the Democrats who put on a red shirt. Yeah.
It's the right thing for me to do. because I want to promise you this. I am going to make sure that in no way do I enable
He wouldn't know what to do with
Donald
that
Trump to ever be president of the United States again.
No. But he promised to support whoever would win. So he's a liar because that was in order to make it onto the stage. He had to promise that. Cheney went to the bunker. Also, I don't think Bush lied. Intel gets it wrong sometimes. How did Israel not see October? Jewish tunnels is 770. I don't know what that means. 770. What Jewish tunnels? What's 770? I don't know what that is.
And that's more important than my own personal ambition.
It's weird because I didn't know that there were this many people on the Lincoln Project.
So we have to decide now. We have to decide in the next 10 months, who do we want to be as a country? We forget that people are walking thousands of miles still to get here. We talk about the problems in the border, and there are problems, and we have to fix them. And we have to secure our border, and we have to do it in a way that's smart and sensible and will work. Because it's not right to have a porous southern border in this country. But I want you to remember something. Those people who are coming over that border, many of them are walking hundreds, if not thousands of miles to get there. Because here is where they see hope. Here is where they see freedom. Here is where they see success. Here is where they see that flag, which means for them, thousands of miles away in other countries, all of those principles. We are still the indispensable nation to the rest of the world. We need to be the indispensable nation once again to each other. We need to believe in America as much as they believe in America. Right now, they believe in America.
What's that?
In a way
Shabbat?
That this country,
Shabbat?
angry, divided,
Brooklyn?
with selfish leadership, who puts their own ambition first, isn't doing for our country anymore. We need to change that. And every election is an opportunity to change it. We have people in this race, all they will do is tell you how bad everything is, how angry we should be. And there's certainly sufficient reason for anger at the failures of the leaders we've selected.
All right, I pulled up the hot mic thing. I'm going to pause. It's only 55 seconds. This is a hot mic from tonight. Chris Christie. Don't worry, I'm coming back to his greatness, his majesty.
People don't want to hear it, Wayne. They don't want to hear it. We know we're right, but they don't want to hear it.
Right.
And there's, we couldn't have been any clearer.
Right.
We couldn't have been any more direct or worked any harder. So, yeah.
Oh, when you give land to China and places like that.
Yeah, that's what you get.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, she spent $68 million so far, just on TV.
He's talking about Nikki Haley now, saying that she spent $68 million on TV so far.
$68 million so far, $59 million by DeSantis, and we spent 12. I mean, who's punching above their weight and who's getting a return on their investment, And she's going to get smoked, and you and I both know it. She's not up to it.
Oh! She's going to get smoked. You and I both know it.
I mean, who's punching above their weight and who's getting a return on their investment, And she's going to get smoked, and you and I both know it. She's not up to this.
She's still 20 points behind Trump in New Hampshire, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And he's still going to carry out, right?
Yes. Always. I talked to DeSantis called me, petrified that I would.
He's probably getting out after Iowa.
Oh my gosh, man! I want more. Oh my gosh, that's great. Thank you for sharing that, Magoose. Thank you so much. All I bet it keeps emergency.
But they're doing it not for that reason. It's not a moment of honesty and transparency. Believe me, it's not. It's because they believe when we get angry, what we'll do is naturally relate to the angriest voice in the room. Donald Trump wants you to be angry every day because he's angry. He wants you to be angry so that you'll relate to his anger and then to vote for him. Please understand this. I have known him well for 22 years. More than anybody else in this race has known him. And I can promise you this. If you put him back behind the desk in the Oval Office and a choice comes and a decision is needed to be made as to whether he puts himself first or he puts you first, how much more evidence do you need that he will pick himself? And if that is what we have there.
This is a guy who spent his entire life putting himself first. Usually at the buffet.
We're going to remain angry, remain divided, and become even more exhausted than they are today.
All right.
The country that I think we should choose is the country that recognizes that our differences have always been our strength.
He's so desperate.
Not a weakness.
So desperate.
Not something to divide us and anger us, but our differences have been our strength.
He's so bitter.
We've come from different countries at different times.
I thought fat men are supposed to be jolly.
Different places, with different skills, with different religions. And yet, only here can those people become an American. You can't go to Germany and become a German. You can't come to Great Britain and become British. But you can come here and become.
I'm going to tell you this. He got me really pissed off when he lied about Trump tonight. Literally lied about how Trump sat in the White House doing nothing during the BLM Summer of Love. And that he was happy to take the National Guard. Yeah, because I was like, that's a flat out lie. He couldn't send the National Guard to anyone who wouldn't take it, but he offered them everywhere. He was sitting there blaming him and relying. This is what's so bothersome. It's not that I care about him lying about Trump. They lie about each other all the time. It's not like I need to defend Trump. It's that he's treating us like we're too stupid to know better. That we don't understand. His objective is to rely on the ignorance of his own voters, not to realize that what he's saying makes no sense if you understand federalism and how the National Guard operates, and that you cannot send the National Guard in without being welcomed by the governor of the state or the leader of the municipality. So all of that crap that he's throwing out there was just complete BS that displayed his disdain for GOP voters or his lack of or his assumption that we're idiots. It was offensive. Not to Trump. It's offensive to me. It's offensive to you or anyone else he's hoping is going to vote for him.
An American. This is a real part of this country. The moment we become a place where people no longer want to come and search.
And yeah, Barracuda, I just want to be clear. I know what you're talking about, the New York tunnels. I know what's going on with the New York tunnels. I'm talking about it every night for the last, 3 days. I keep talking about these stupid tunnels. But I'm going to share something new. I'm going to share something new with you about the New York tunnels and this question here that was asked by Will Call Magic about the purpose of the tunnels and what this is about and whether it's related to COVID. And I'm also going to explain to you about the ritual baths, because many of you heard about ritual baths. I'm going to explain to you after I'm finished with this schmuck, and I don't know if I'm going to make it all the way through because he's starting to get boring to me. But I am going to explain to you how that whole thing works, something called a mikvah. I'm going to explain to you what that is and why it's relevant in this story, and how it plays into the set of facts. So I will explain to you. I'm going to need to spend 10 minutes at least 5 minutes explaining Jewish law and custom and variations in custom. So I'm gonna have to explain that to you so you can understand how that plays into this story, because it does. It certainly plays a role. So, but I'm gonna have to explain it to you. So, but I'm gonna try and make it a little further with this fat cow.
Of a better, freer, stronger nation.
I was playing with you, Drop Barracuda, because I was like, how did you not know I've talked about this every day for the last 3 days?
It will be harder to solve. We back our allies around the world, and they shouldn't have to think twice about having America's support. Yet we have petty politics interfering with supporting freedom fighters in Ukraine. We have petty politics interfering with defending our friends in Israel. We have petty politics interfering with making sure Taiwan is armed to fight off the Chinese. They use the border as an excuse not to do those things. How about we have a country where we can do all those things? Because leadership aspires to something greater, not to appealing to the lowest common denominator, which is what the leadership of the last decade and a half in the White House has done, including the current president. We need a country that once again feels like everyone has a stake in what we're doing.
All right, I'm done.
We can bring
Adios, muchachas. Take a hike. Thank God we'll never hear from you in politics ever again. Goodbye. Goodbye, fat man. Goodbye. All right. Speaking of the Jews, I need to explain something to you about Jewish law, and this is my best answer I can give you on this question. Okay? Best answer I can give you on this as to whether it means for prayer or other stuff. So you need to understand what a mikveh is, and a mikveh is, I know he didn't want to let him give unless he was going to promise not to use it for a campaign speech, and he wouldn't make that promise. And it seems like it's depriving him of due process, but that's what this entire trial has been about. So no big surprise there. Okay. Let me explain to you to answer this question as far as the tunnels and stuff like that, and what I've read over the last 24 hours, which sort of impacts my perspective as to what likely is the situation here. In other streams, I've talked about the Lubavitch and this split off faction from Lubavitch. Last night, I was explaining about how there's sort of the Lubavitch can sort of, by analogy, it's a poor analogy, but the closest I can explain something that would be comprehensible to the vast majority of you is that much like Mormons are Christians, but they're sort of like a different and they are, you certainly recognize them as being Christians. So Lubavitch are a type of Hasidic Jews, which is, they're definitely recognized as being Jews, but that doesn't mean that they're not their own sort of separate entity and somewhat different practices than Jews in my circle or the majority of Jews. And that Lubavitch is one form of Hasidism, one type of Hasidic Jew. There are dozens of different types. And each different type is basically are followers of a particular family dynasty, and Lubavitch is the most well-known one because they spread out across the globe, like literally setting up what are called Chabad houses, and there's like 75 of them in California, each in a different town. So, and they're in India, they're everywhere on the globe, and there's no other Jewish outreach of the nature that they are. Lubavitch in general tend to be much more messianic than most Jews, and apparently there was a split off between Lubavitch, where as messianic as your typical Lubavitch Jew is, that there's a group which is far more ultra messianic, that they call themselves Mashiachists. Mashiach is our term for Messiah. So Mashiachists is just like in English, is an anglicized way of taking Mashiach and making you an ist. So Mashiachists basically is saying, I guess, I don't know. And apparently they believe that the head rabbi of the dynasty, who died decades ago, and that was, widely revered for decades by Lubavitch Hasidic Jews, that he is still alive. That's what I've heard. They actually believe, which, okay. I certainly don't believe he's alive. And I'm in the great majority, the overwhelming majority of 99.999% of all Jews who are like, no, he died decades ago. Okay. That was from Menachem Mendel Schneerson. Anyhow, what's with the tunnels? So apparently, the 770 is a reference to an address in Crown Heights, which is an area of Brooklyn, 770 East Parkway. In Crown Heights, that's where where there's the biggest grouping of Lubavitch Jews, not just Jews, but specifically Lubavitch. They congregate, they all, a lot of them, just there's large numbers of them. The most significant size Lubavitch community is in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. And the center of the community is the synagogue, or called shul, which was the last shul of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And that was at 770 Eastern Parkway. So everyone just refers to it as 770. Whenever they're talking about Chabad or Lubavitch, they'll just refer to 770. Everyone who's Jewish knows that's a reference to like Lubavitch headquarters. Okay? It's a big building. It's a big, massive building, 770, which has synagogue and various rooms for study and stuff like that. I'm not even sure if I've ever set foot in 770 personally. I've visited Crown Heights a few times, but that's not relevant to this story. Okay, so apparently these tunnels were built by these Mashiachas, who are a split off from the main part of Lubavitch. After Lubavitch died, they sort of split off from the main part of Lubavitch, and they're a relatively small portion of Lubavitch Jews, and apparently they dug these tunnels. When they dug these tunnels is somewhat of a mystery. And I was explaining yesterday, I don't know if it happened 6 months ago, I don't know if it happened during COVID, but at some point they built these tunnels. You have to understand that 770 is a rather large facility. And there's apparently there was some sort of basement offshoot area which had something called a mikveh. Now, I need to explain to you what a mikveh is so you can understand why this is a significant thing and why this makes me think more likely that these tunnels were probably built during COVID. Okay? So that's why I need to explain to you now about Jewish law. So a mikveh is a term for a pool of water. And the purpose of a mikveh is for what's considered a ritual bath, but it's not really a whole bathing process. The concept behind the mikveh is that we believe that we can retain a mystical type of impurity, and that we can be pure or impure. So the purpose of the bath is basically to cleanse away the impurity and bring us back to a state of purity. The logic behind it is that everything that's coming from the earth itself is pure, and that we as people basically are carbon life forms coming from the earth. There's no way for a person to live by burying, and the way that you can find that purity again is by having a return to that. Now, you can't bury yourself. No, you obviously can't bury yourself into earth. So in lieu thereof, there's a concept of a mikveh, which is a concept of bathing in water, which is not really bathing, but it's basically returning in your natural state to being completely submerged in water. And it's really just a momentary, like a dunk in the water, which I'm positive, without a doubt. There's almost no question about this if you understand philosophically where Christianity comes from, that baptism comes from this. The idea of baptizing yourself and dunking in the water almost certainly was a modification from the concept of the ritual bath. We call that pool a mikveh. Now, with respect to using a mikveh, so women end up going to mikveh far more frequently. It's part of purification for cohabitation. So like every cycle. I'm not going to get into details about that. Men far less frequently go to mikvah. Most Jewish men far less frequently will ever go to a mikvah. Many Jewish men, majority of, I'm talking about even Orthodox Jewish men, and practicing Torah, Jews who keep Torah, will very infrequently go to a mikvah. So many of us will go once a year for the most high holiday, which is Yom Kippur. And we'll basically, it's customary that most Orthodox Jews will go to a mikvah the day, on the afternoon or morning before Yom Kippur, for like the purification, and then not come back for another year until the day before Yom Kippur the following year. With respect to this, was talking about Jewish men using a mikvah. Not all, some will go more frequently than that. Hasidic Jews, however, not simply Lubavitch, but Hasidic Jews use the mikvah a lot more frequently. And they literally will just go down, dunk in the pool, come on out. The whole process takes 5 minutes. And many of them will literally go every single day, which is far more than Jewish women go. So many of them, Hasidic Jews, will go every day. Especially what I've noticed is the more messianic, the more fixated they are on being messianic, there tends to be a correlation that they will be more dedicated towards ensuring that they go to a mikveh every day. With that in mind, in this basement there, you have to realize that having a mikveh is not an easy thing to build a mikveh. It's not, because the laws with respect to something that's considered a valid mikveh are very complicated, far more complicated than I can possibly express in this context, in this setting here. But they're very complicated, and they basically, it makes it difficult to just have a mikveh. You have to put in effort to create a situation where you can, it's not just like filling up a pool of water that you just take a hose and fill it up. There's all sorts of different laws with respect to rainwater. It's very complicated. And it's not really relevant for the purposes of this discussion. The point being that it's not like you have a mikveh like every block. So if you're a Hasidic Jew or a Lubavitch Jew, so the mikveh becomes, and you're going there every day. So that's an important part of your day-to-day routine, because, you sort of like make your time to go to the mikveh, and it's a daily part of your process. Now, during COVID lockdowns, it would make sense that because there was a mikveh there in that pool, and they shut down 770, and they basically said, we're locking up this building, and New York City was really aggressive about locking down all these different synagogues and churches for lengthy periods of time, so much so that they ended up having to go to the Supreme Court ultimately to fight about the amount of lockdowns that they were cracking down, that Cuomo was cracking down in New York. So that leads me to believe, given the nature of Lubavitch Jewish men and how many of them, the large numbers of percentage-wise of those men that are dedicated towards using a mikveh every day, I would not be remotely surprised if during COVID that a number of them basically worked in concert to create these tunnels so that they could access the mikveh there and go there and use it every single day. To me, that seems like a very likely, given no other facts as of right now, if I had to speculate what's the most likely basis as to why this tunnel ever would have been built, that to me seems to be the most likely basis. That it's basically Lubavitch Jews who want to use the mikveh every day. It's not easy to find a place that you can use a mikveh. They knew that this place was unused and sort of separated. It was like a basement section that was sort of separated away and had at one point been closed off. It was not being used by anyone else because it had been closed off. And they realized that, hey, if we dig a tunnel down here, we can go to mikveh every day, which is what they're used to doing. So that to me seems to be the most likely basis. Whether once they established that area there, they used it for prayer services, they probably would have. Not in the mikveh itself, but like, it's a big tunnel and there are other rooms there. So if it's something that's out of sight from the rest of from the New York authorities who are cracking down on prayer services, that probably is it. But that would be why they would use that section, because it's not just a place for them to pray in private, but it would be a place for them to actually have access to a mikveh, which was likely a very difficult thing for them to access and something they would have felt a grave need to access during lockdowns of COVID. So based on that, if you ask me my gut instinct as to when these tunnels were built and why they were built, it probably was COVID. That doesn't mean it was. It may have been built only 6 months ago. I don't know. But to me, given that's why I provided this whole backdrop of as far as context of what a mikveh is for and how often it's used and the different nature as to the significance it is in your day-to-day life and how it's different for a Lubavitch Jew than it would be for me, even though we're both practicing Jews, because that's part of their custom, which is not part of the customs of the Jew, of Jews of my family. So it's part of their custom. It's not part of my custom. It's not something that's a requirement under Torah law. It's just something that's a custom. So that's why I'm saying that that's, to me, like logically, it makes sense. That's probably what happened. I don't know that's what happened, but that's to me what seems most logical explanation as to why these tunnels were built, what they were for. Now, recently, apparently they still kept using it, and there were still people still using these tunnels now, and that when the people who run 770s, because now apparently it was being used by those Mashiachists, the ones who are very messianic, and they don't have, and there's sort of a split off from the majority of Lubavitch who are not part of that group, and it's that majority of Lubavitch that controls 770 proper. So now you have this basically like these tunnels of the people who are not part of 770, and when they learned about it, they're like, we don't want these people using it. It's our property. It's a dangerous situation. We don't want them there. They probably would have, and once they know about it, certainly they could have legal exposure, God forbid, if there was any sort of injury to anyone down there. Plus, it might not be a safe structure if they have these tunnels under there. God knows, where they're building. They're unlikely to be engineers who understand the importance of maintaining structural integrity. So you sort of have to be suspicious. They probably didn't get, the best people. They probably just dug wherever they thought, digging would make sense. So yeah, so they basically like, we want to fill it. And when they did, a bunch of the Mashiachas basically like, no. And they basically went in there to stop them from filling it with cement. So the main people running Lubavitch called the NYPD, and they were like, we need you to get rid of these people because we need to shut these tunnels down. And that's what the video was. That's my best explanation as to like how this conflict unfolded. So I don't think there's anything nefarious. I think there's a conflict there, but I like to give the benefit of the doubt and assume that everyone who is involved in this story is well-meaning and thinks that they're in the right. But now I think everything there that I just described to you, to me, seems like the most logical explanation as to how events would have unfolded in the way they did. And that would be consistent with all the videos we've seen, the stories that I've read online, New York Post, and different things. Everything I've read seems consistent with what I've just shared with you. And now I've given you the Torah, law, and custom background so you can understand why I reached the conclusions that I reached. So there you go. There you go. I think please don't make me talk about this every day. Please, I don't want to have to go through this every day. People ask me, and I understand it's a weird story and everyone wants to know about it, and it sounds hokey and it sounds almost like unsettling, like what's happening in the tunnels, why would they have tunnels? And I understand. I don't think there's anything remotely nefarious. I'm positive there's nothing remotely nefarious, but I understand how it plays in social media. Tunnel scene, please. You can pull up videos. So St. John the Baptist plagiarized. It's almost like, where would the idea come from? You have to realize that mikveh, the idea of going to mikveh, isn't a concept that goes back 3,500 years, like 1,500 years before, at least 1,300 years before Jesus. Jews were always using a mikveh. So Where, I mean, how would that not have been something that they knew about and engaged in their youth, right? John the Baptist, son of Zechariah, a Jewish priest of the order of Abijah. Oh, by the way, speaking of, you talk about Jewish priests. The priests who worked in the temple, they had, before they go in the temple, they had to use the mikveh also. So yeah, that would be part of their like regular routine as part of the purification process before they would do service in the temple. So if you're telling me that John was the son of a Jewish priest, he would have learned about when he was a kid. When I was in Medrash Shmuel, one of my roommates went to the mikveh on Erev Yom Kippur in a snorkel and fins during the busiest time of day. Okay. So messianics and tunnels don't always go together. No. It's a rare thing. It's a very rare thing. Wonderful breakdown. Thank you. You're welcome. I didn't really hear about the whole mikveh thing until today. I saw something saying something about it, but I only heard about that today. Joe, you're growing me as a voice of reason and good logic. Oh, thank you so much. Let me give you a... You should check out my work on locals, which is goodlogic.locals.com. Goodlogic.locals.com. I'm definitely not promising, but definitely not a promise, but definitely doing a stream on locals tomorrow, which will probably start off as not members only and then switch into that. If people cannot afford it, I will give you a code. Ask me. I'll hook you up. I will hook you up. But it's motivated to help people, to encourage people, because I always worry that YouTube is going to just yank my channel one day or make it impossible for anyone to find me ever. So that's sort of like my little backup. That's my little backup. And that way I motivate people who have the money. That way I'm not keeping anyone out. I understand some people, unfortunately, $5 a day is they just can't afford it, by an economy, and I get it. And I don't want those people to be kept out. So I'd much rather people ask me for that code than feel too shy about it. And I'm certainly not going to ask you about your personal financial situation or your resources or anything of that nature. I'm much happier for you to have the code and join me in locals than for you to feel too shy to ask me about it. You just have to hook me up and say, hey, Joe, I'd like to follow your content. I can't cover this right now. And I'll give you a code which will work for 30 days and it'll be good for the next 6 months. It'll be good into July. You have to re-put it in every month, but it'll work for you for the next 6 months. And then 6 months from now, if you're still in financial straits, you just ask me again, I'll give it to you again. I'll do it for the rest of your life. Okay. But I figure if I put it up there for 6 months, then people are like, it sort of is like a little bump in case, hopefully, I'm hoping that people who are struggling financially are going to, be able to climb out of it. So it sort of is like a little way of reminding. But I'd much rather someone for the rest of my life and theirs that they would basically hit me up and I give it to them for free than for them to feel shy at all. Don't feel shy. Don't. If you can't afford the $5 a month, I'm more than happy to say it's yours. Take it. Here's the code. I don't ask any questions. No proof. I don't even need to know your freaking name. I really don't. I don't even need to know your name. So anyway, but that's at goodlogic.locals.com. All right, that is my show. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything. The people who hang out in there, I jokingly refer to them as diggers. It's a long story. Joe, as a grown woman who has struggled with weight most of my life, I find your fat jokes hilarious. Please don't. Thank you, Denise. I appreciate that. Breck Nichols, Joe, at this point, isn't criticizing Chris Christie just beating a dead whore? Bada bing. Thank me. All right. Joe, all his Christie supporters look like pod people. They did look weird, right? They look like strange folks. Let me make sure as I check up on my diggers. Oh, here we go. Here's a couple of diggers here. Trigger of Oz says, here's $1, put it toward the funds for a new tunnel. Big Boob says, don't forget when you build that tunnel that there's a reason you have the diggers. We're born for this, indeed. Yeah, I'll probably tell that story again. I haven't told the digger story in a while, but they affectionately refer to themselves as the diggers. So, oh, and you want me to check Venmo? I can definitely do that. I'm a big fan of Venmo. Let me check that out real fast before I get out of here. I don't really check it frequently, so I appreciate when someone tells me to check for Venmo. Oh, thank you so much. So Amanda says, as one of your cult members, I apologize for all your diggers. We didn't mean to let you down. We will do a better job hiding your other tunnels. That's great. Thank you. Thank you for your generosity. I'm going to drop one of these. In fact, I think I don't know if I covered this one also, so I'm going to get you a belated one also. All right. I think it's time for me to start landing my plane. I don't know if I'm going to be having day stream tomorrow, but definitely not promising. Definitely not promising. But definitely will. No promises. Definitely will do a local stream tomorrow afternoon. So early tomorrow evening. Anyway, that's my show. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. You know what you got to do. Don't be down in the mouth. Stay happy. Eat the bugs. And as always, Godspeed.